We are live on a Monday. It is the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN as the Eagles drop a kind of a heartbreaking type of game, a very winnable game at home to fall to 0-4 at home, by the way, to the LA Chargers. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Hennings producing today's show. You out there, the Monday after yet another Eagles loss where the defense just could not get off the field in the second half of that game. And if we like to play the blame game on a Monday, as we do when the team loses, it is a clear finger point right at John Gannon and the defense. Again, just could not get off the field. A ridiculous 80+% completion percentage for the fifth time this season. A quarterback completed over 80% of his passes, and the Eagles just could not get off the field in the second half of the game. And really a game in which I thought Nick Sirianni had a good game plan. You know, we have been on the air many times on a Monday and have slammed Sirianni's, play calling. I thought in the beginning of that game, he was a little too pass happy in the first series of the game. He threw, I think, 6 out of the first 7 plays were in the air. And then after that, he got back to what they did well last week, ran the ball, controlled the clock, did a really good job in wearing down. I mean, I really thought there was a time in that game, if you were watching, you saw a LA Charger team that was gassed. They looked demoralized. They were just getting beaten and battered by the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. I mean, I tweeted at one point that Jordan Mailata drove his guy to Citizens Bank Park. I mean, he was kicking the crap out of the guy across from him in the ground game. And unfortunately, the Chargers defense, they look gassed. They look demoralized. I said, don't screw this up, Sirianni. It's clear and evident what needs to be done. And they just could not get the job done defensively. I thought Hurts missed a couple of throws that really could have been the difference in the game. Smith was open, got to make that throw on the third down in the red zone there. He missed the throw to Goddard. Those are 2 throws. That's potentially 14 points that could have been put on the board. Instead, you end up with field goals in those situations. There's a lot to unpack in this game, so let's do it together. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. That's the text board. You can get involved that way. You can download the free mobile app, and you can text us through the phone. You can also watch the show live, streaming live video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can comment in the video comment section of the program. So, look, I mean, John Gannon, to me, that's an awful job by John Gannon. Read the room, buddy. Read the room. I mean, at one point yesterday, this is the most frustrating part, I think, of the entire thing yesterday, is that at one point, you have got to have a feeling. You have got to know that Justin Herbert went 16 for 16 against the zone yesterday. It is tied for the third most completions in the NFL without an incompletion against a zone look since 2017. Herbert became the 5th quarterback to complete 80+% of his passes against the Eagles this year. If you go back to 1950, the Eagles have allowed just 6 quarterbacks to complete 80+% of their passes. They have done it 5 times this year. 5. Read the room, buddy. 16 for 16. Wouldn't you think around 9 for 9, maybe 12 for 12, that you would say, what I'm doing's not working. I got to try something different here. At what point do you say it's just not working? Got to do something different. I mean, realistically, if I'm your boss and you have thrown the same defensive coverage out over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't work, At what point do I have to step in as Nick Sirianni and say, dude, something different or you're flipping gone? Seriously. I mean, I put some of this on Sirianni for not stepping in. He said after the game, my name is on that game plan. Well, guess what? If you endorse that game plan, then you're part of the problem, Sirianni. And I want to give you a passing grade for what you did offensively yesterday because I thought they had a decent game plan offensively. But for God's sakes, as the head coach of the team, you got to tell that guy, dude, if you don't change this defense, I'm going to have to step in and do it. And you don't want me calling defensive plays. I mean, for God's sakes, dude. I mean, enough is enough. Enough is enough. 16 for 16. When I read that stat, I'm thinking, how has anybody in the building that has any authority allow that to continue again? Holy mackerel, we get it. His whole philosophy is, hey, if you have these long drives, if you have a long drive, somewhere in that drive, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to get a penalty. You're going to get a holding call. You're going to go offsides. You're going to fumble. You might throw an interception. Something is going to go wrong. Like if you have an 11, 15 play drive, that if you have that many plays, you're going to make a mistake. It's not happening. There's no mistakes occurring. So your theory is flawed right now. It might sound good in the days leading up that, hey, if they're going to run 15 plays on this drive, well, they're going to make a mistake somewhere along the way. Well, they're not. They're not making a mistake. And your defense can't get off the field. And it cost your team a winnable game yesterday. This team, it sounds and looks like this team is far. They're not that far. If this team was coached properly, they are not. The Atlanta Falcons, okay? Let's go to this real fast. The Atlanta Falcons. You remember what the Eagles did to the Atlanta Falcons? Can anybody refresh me on what happened in the Eagles game against the Atlanta Falcons? Right? The game that Philadelphia plays Atlanta, week number 1. Eagles 32, Atlanta 6. Total domination. Well, then Monday, the day after the Eagles win, what is the reaction? Well, Atlanta sucks. They're one of the worst teams in the league. Well, guess what? If the playoffs started today, Atlanta's in and you're out. So for all these people who keep laughing about the Eagles making the playoffs, the Atlanta Falcons, a team that everybody said, well, Atlanta's one of the worst teams in the league. They suck. Right now, if the playoffs were to start, Atlanta's in, you're out. And if you simply had a defensive game plan to get the hell off the field one time in the game, one. They didn't punt again yesterday. How many times do you play a season when you never see the other team's punter? This is the second time you have played a game where the other team never punted. It's unbelievable how bad this guy has been. Hey, look, you guys asked for this. If Jim Schwartz was the defensive coordinator of this team this year, this team would be in the playoffs right now. 609-403-0973. I mean, it's really bad. It's bad. Hey, look, I get it. He doesn't have the personnel. They don't have that guy on defense. Their pass rush doesn't have a guy. Their linebacker doesn't have that guy. Their secondary doesn't have that standout guy. They don't have that guy right now. But you have some strengths on your team that you need to play to. Just because you don't have the guy, I mean, you don't have to have Von frickin' Miller. You know, you don't have to have Myles Garrett. You say, okay, who's my best player? Right now, my best two guys. I got Darius Slay. He's my best guy. I got Nelson. Those two guys are the best group I have. You go with what your best is. He's taking the strength of this team and minimizing them. He's saying, well, I got TJ Edwards and Davion Taylor. Let me highlight those guys. And by the way, Edwards has done a much better job since he's been put in at linebacker. You wonder what the hell took so long to get him on the field. And Davion Taylor, God bless him, at least he's an athletic linebacker. He misses plays, he overruns stuff, but for God's sakes, the linebackers at least have some pulse. But holy mackerel, John Gannon, this isn't rocket science, man. The guy completes 16 out of 16. Somewhere on the way from 0 to 16, it is time to try something different. For God's sakes, man.
Remember this offseason when Gannon said that we're going to not have a scheme, we're going to build the system around the players? What happened to that, Mike?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Somebody had mentioned to me, hey, is this guy this bad? Does he not have the players that he wants? Hey, when they hired this guy, people around the NFL were talking about him being a potential head coaching candidate. This was a highly lauded hire, a very bright defensive mind. Put it this way. I don't know that if he gets his players, that this is going to change all that much.
You can't trust this guy because he told you he was going to do one thing.
Well, listen,
and
he might have whatever he wants to do might be great if he has the right players. Here's the problem. To be great, you got to be able to make adjustments. And he might be just a one-trick pony. So even if he's great at what he does, eventually they're going to figure out what you do well. So then what? How do you make the adjustment if they say, hey, we figured out what you do really well? Then you have to adjust from that. He hasn't given me any indication that he can get out of what he wants to do and do something different. And guess what? It's cost this team. It has cost this team multiple times, including yesterday. Look, I know people out there laugh about the thoughts of the playoffs. I get it. The team struggles. They have a lot of warts. They're not very good. I got news for you. Atlanta's not better than you. Carolina's not better than you. Minnesota's not better than you. Those teams are the teams you're battling. So I get the fact that you don't think the Eagles are any good. Do you think any of those teams are any good? And if you had just some competent game plan yesterday, you win that game. And if you win that game yesterday, you would be 4-5, and you would be one game behind Atlanta. And I get it. Are they beating Arizona? Probably not. Are they beating Green Bay? Probably not. But you know what? Green Bay has a quarterback who has made a life decision. And just imagine if wild card weekend came and Aaron Rodgers was at a party and he couldn't play in the game, and you had to face Jordan Love in the wild card game. In the environment that we are currently in, it is not out of the realm of possibility to say if you're in the playoffs, you have no idea what team you might face come December. So this team, I get it. They're not great. They have a lot of issues. They have a lot of warts. But you cannot have the game plan be your biggest wart. The game plan is supposed to take players who are not that talented and accentuate the positives of those players. You're supposed to pull the best part of those players out, not expose them. Just like Nick Sirianni has done. Look, for as much as we've criticized Sirianni for his game plans, he has changed his ways. We said on Friday, if Sirianni changes the way, if he says, hey, I learned something in the game against Detroit, he showed me that he did learn something. Sirianni did learn something. And yesterday, I don't think he called an A-plus game yesterday. There was a couple game calls I didn't like, but that's going to happen. I thought for the most part, though, at the end of the day, you ran 39 times yesterday. He ran 39 times. Jalen Hurts, 11 of 17, made some plays with his feet. He missed a couple of big throws. He's got to have those throws. That's the evolution of where Hurts needs to get to. If this is your offense, when you have those opportunities, you got to make them. You have to convert those small opportunities that you get. The Dallas Goedert throw has to be made. The Devonta Smith throw in the back of the end zone on third down. I hate the play call, but the play was there, and it has to be made. You don't have to run 39 times every week. He's almost going overboard now, Sirianni. But I'll give him credit. He found out what his team did well, and he's sticking with it. He's accentuating the positives of the roster he has. I have good offensive linemen. I have a nice running game. We can block up front. Let me go with that. I got a tight end who can make some plays. Boom. There's your offense. They've now kind of carved out their identity offensively. But defensively, my God. Look, Jim Schwartz simply didn't have the horses. You know, he's playing back there with Nicole Roby-Coleman, and Avonte Maddox is playing on the outside. He had Clervon LeBlanc. I mean, there was games when he was using his 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th corner. If you gave Schwartz Slay and Nelson, my God, holy mackerel, they would be considerably better, in my opinion. The Eagles' defense had problems last year because they didn't have the players. This team, I'm not saying has Pro Bowlers, but they are better on the corners, significantly better on the corners than they were at any part of the Jim Schwartz era, and that includes the team that won the Super Bowl. Darius Slay is significantly better than Ronald Darby was. And Steven Nelson is better than Jalen Mills. That's who won the Super Bowl, those two guys. So don't tell me that this defense has the same problems as years past, because their personnel on defense is better. Their defensive personnel is better right now. Now, they lost Brandon Graham. That hurt them. The problem they have is their linebackers in this particular scheme that John Gannon's running. He's running cover play and expect that defense to work. Now, Davion Taylor, I think he has shown a whole more talent, a ton of more talent than we ever. Nobody thought that kid was going to step on the field. That kid can actually play. Taylor can actually play. So in the third round to get that kid, they did a good job with that kid because he can play. He's sideline to sideline. There was so many plays yesterday where teams in the past couple weeks would complete the pass over the middle, and the linebacker, Wilson or Singleton, couldn't catch them, not fast enough to catch them. Taylor lets him catch the ball, and then he's fast enough to bring him down from behind. Taylor does a good job of just letting you catch the ball and then bringing you down. TJ Edwards has gotten much better in pass coverage, but he is significantly better against the run than Wilson and Singleton are. Their defensive personnel is significantly better in the secondary than they were last year. The problem is Gannon, he doesn't trust those guys at all. How do you look Darius Slay and Steve Nelson in the eye and say, don't trust you two? It's preposterous. They're the only two guys you would trust. They're the only two. I mean, could you imagine if Schwartz had those two guys? You're giving them Clervon LeBlanc. Who was the other guy? Who was the other couple guys that they had in that secondary that I'm forgetting about?
We had Bosby.
Devontae Bosby.
You had Seymour.
Sure.
Kevon Seymour.
Kevon Seymour. Yep. The guy that he was working at the used car lot or something.
Right. Yeah, he was doing car work.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had them. You also had, I'm trying to remember the one guy's name. There's another one.
I mean, this is going back the last couple of years.
Right.
You know, Slay they had last year. And look, quite frankly, I don't think Schwartz used Slay very well, but I think that was due in large part because the guy on the other side was so bad that they had to run what they ran. If they had Nelson last year. Jeez almighty. I can't believe what
Well,
I
also,
watched yesterday.
remember last year, the safety situation was a mess too, because once McLeod got injured, they had nobody. They were trotting
Well,
Jalen Mills out there, hoping
keep
for
in
the
mind,
best.
right, last year he's using Jalen Mills at safety last year.
And that did not go well.
No, it didn't. Holy mackerel. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. That's the text board. You can hit me up there. 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. I'll open up the phone lines as well. We'll get to you on the other side. 609-573-3776, South Jersey. 609-573-3776 in Delaware. I mean, if I'm pointing the finger at somebody, the head coach has to be involved because at some point he has to step in and say, this is not good enough. Hey, look, I made my adjustments. Do you think I want to run the ball? No, I don't. But I've made my adjustments. 16 for 16. At some point, someone needs to step in there and tell them, hey, it's time to change things up. And you know what? Interestingly enough, I have a number that you're not going to believe. I got that coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Plus 99 bottles. We're going to enter more people this hour at 2:55. All right, 227 Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Follow me over there. Watch the live show on the video over on our YouTube channel. Got a lot of comments coming in on the YouTube video. If you have something you want to get off your chest, 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. That's how you can get involved on the phones. The text board is open, 609-403-0973. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. It is incomprehensible to me how John Gannon could not read the room yesterday and say, all right, you know what? I think this guy has figured me out. Let me try to do something out. But here's something. The Eagles blitzed yesterday on a season high 30% of the plays yesterday. 30% of the time yesterday they blitzed. I always hear they got to blitz more. 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 They did blitz more. It didn't work. Blitzing isn't the answer to all your problems out there. I feel like everybody's just like, hey, you know what? I got no other answer. I just want to see more blitzing. I mean, that's code word for I really don't know anything about football, so I just want to see more blitzes because that's the only thing I know. You know, there's other things you can do to try to get the quarterback confused. Just blitzing him at, nauseum doesn't work all the time. As evidenced yesterday, they blitzed 30% of the time yesterday. It didn't work. I mean, Herbert is very good at getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. The problem was the coverage. They're blitzing yesterday. They can't get to him in time because the coverage, I mean, he was playing in Chester County, his safeties yesterday, for God's sakes. They're catching the ball over the middle, nothing over top. He just does not want to get beat over the top. For God's sakes, Gannon. You got capable corners. It's not something this team has had. I get it. I mean, if you're watching tape of the years past, I get it. They don't have corners for over the top. But this team, you got to say, you're the two guys I trust. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Derek says, another game with a quarterback with Hall of Fame numbers against this defense. The Jim Johnson method. The difference is his D was able to have takeaways. This D has 0 takeaways yesterday, and I don't even think they got to Herbert. Nope. No sacks. I don't even know that they had a quarterback hit yesterday. All right, Josh says they had 1. It is the Jim Johnson method. Bend but don't break. That's what Jim Johnson wanted. But he blitzed a lot more than this team did. He also had players that could do it. He had Brian Dawkins, for God's sakes. This team don't have Brian Dawkins. So if you're blitzing somebody and it ain't Brian Dawkins, there's a good chance you're going to get blitzed. I mean, Jim Johnson had tremendous corners. Troy Vincent, one of the best corners this franchise has had. This is what the problem John Gannon has is he's got good corners. I mean, Steve Nelson and Darius Slay, they are both Nelson's good average. He's nothing special, but he's a professional. He's going to get beat from time to time. He is. But you got to take that opportunity and say, look, Steve Nelson, if you get beat once a game, okay, I'm okay with that. But he has to recognize that he does not have the talent on his defensive line, which he hoped he was going to have. You got Graham hurt. And you're not getting to that quarterback enough. Hey, here's a disappointment in the game. We talked about it on Friday with Casey Joyner, Adam Kaplan. He said it, 1,000%. The key to the game is you had to beat their right side of the line. Their right side of that offensive line was their weak spot. They had 2 reserves in there, and you didn't win that battle. They beat you again. This is the second week now where you face an inferior offensive line, Vegas, and now San Diego, LA, whatever the hell you want to call them. And they won the battle where you had the advantage. That's on you, John Gannon.
Speaking of Steve Nelson, the guy who had the 1 QB hit was the one blitz that they ran with Nelson. He got the hit on Herbert after he threw the ball.
They had to save the corner blitz. And did he get called for a penalty? Didn't Nelson get called for a roughing the quarterback?
But that counts as a quarterback hit.
Okay, well, they got called for a penalty when they blitzed.
Congratulations.
Jason Downey, you're right. Barnett, again. And I tweeted it yesterday. There were 2 plays in the game. There was more than that, but 2 that stand out to me. 1, a horse bleep call on Slay for holding. Horrible call. Who was doing the game yesterday? Charles Davis?
Yeah, Davis and Iron Eagle.
They ran the replay, and Davis says, I got to be honest with you, I can't see much on that one. Yeah, nobody could. Nobody could see anything on that call. There was just a lot of hand fighting. It was a horrible call, and it extends that drive. It gives him an automatic first down. Horrible call. That play there and the flipping Barnett offsides. Are you kidding me? I mean, look, it's 3rd and 6. Chances are the way he's going, 16 out of 16, he's probably going to complete another pass. But it goes from 3rd and 6 to 3rd and 1. They don't even get the 3rd and 1. They end up going for it on 4th down because they got stopped. But Barnett, I mean, at what point is enough with this guy? I know it. They don't have anybody else.
But something's got to give him. Like, at some point, the Eagles, look what happened yesterday. You had Darius Slay injured, right, in the middle of the game. But half of your inactives were all cornerbacks. So
McCain, you got all these guys that nobody knows anything about.
But the point is that you inactivated half your cornerbacks. Slay goes down, and I'm looking around. I got Barnett still running around the field being an idiot. Like, at some point, maybe you just need to deactivate Barnett and just be like, bro, just sit down and shut up for a
They
week.
just don't have another guy.
But they should have traded for a guy.
Maybe. I mean, yeah. I mean, you could say, hey, they got to go find someone just to get him off the field.
You got 200 cornerbacks. Why can't you go out and find an extra D end?
Chris Hernandez, defense is too soft. Quarterbacks are picking them apart. A blitz here and there would help. Coaching staff gets stuck in their ways. They don't adjust. They blitzed more times yesterday than they have all year. So that's that. Let's just not default to that every single time something doesn't go right. You got to be more critical thinkers than that, right?
Yeah.
I know this isn't like, hey, I want to really sit down and spend my whole day on thinking about this. But the fan diverts to, we got to blitz more. That's not the answer to every test, right?
And it can't be, because if your answer is to blitz more, then guys like Brady are going to pick you apart.
Oh, if you blitz Herbert, they blitzed him yesterday more than they blitzed any other quarterback all season long, and they got destroyed.
They got ripped for it. You can't just blitz all the time.
Whoever wrote this, Goddard should have caught that ball. We got rid of Ertz. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. I mean, it would have been a great catch. I mean, it was a horrible throw. Don't blame Goddard for not catching that ball. That throw sucked.
There were 2 problems with that play. Number 1 was the fact that Hurts didn't read the blitz properly, and that's why it was a bad pass. Number 2, he should have thrown the ball sooner to put it on Goddard. Instead, he held the ball, hoping that he could maybe work around the blitz, and they just flung it in the air.
It's a throw that has to be made. There's nobody in the area code. Has to make that throw. Do I want Goddard to make that catch? Sure. Don't sit here and tell me you got rid of Ertz and that guy didn't make that catch. Get out of here. Go blitz more, buddy. 609-403-0973. John Gannon doesn't deserve an F. He deserves lower than an F. Well, Jeff, I'm with you on that. He was terrible yesterday. That might have been the worst of the worst performances. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. All right, Mike McGarry's here. We'll get the weekend reaction. Joel Embiid could be out a while. We'll tell you why. And the team that figured out a way to stop Ben Simmons might be the same team that wants him. Details next. Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, 242, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. He's brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business online, calvielectric.com. Let's hash it up. We got a lot going on. By the way, the Major League Baseball offseason is underway. The GM meetings are happening. So I don't know if there's even going to be a baseball season. That's a 50-50 proposition as well. What's going on, Mike?
Yeah, I think there'll be a baseball season. I think there'll be a lockout. I think it'll be over by spring training, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of off-season moves. Usually this general managers meetings sort of, lay the groundwork for a lot of off-season stuff going on. I think it's all going to come to a halt in December with a lockout.
Yeah, that would be a disastrous situation, I think, for baseball. If they have a lockout of any sort that hinders the start of the season, they're in trouble.
Yeah, I don't think a lockout in December or January matters, but you're 100% right. In today's economic climate and what the world's gone through the past 2 years, for any sport to have any sort of lockout and miss games is, not the direction anybody wants to be going in.
All right, Mike. Yesterday, Eagles winnable game. They're in the game. Another historic performance by a quarterback, over 80%. At one point, he completed 16 out of 16. John Gannon, is he the problem with this team right now, or is that just a reactionary issue to a team that's just not good enough?
It's funny. I remember back, when this staff was first hired, I was really impressed by what Gannon had to say, how he came across on those Zoom meetings. There were a lot of people that were saying, okay, at least Gannon, he came off much better than Sirianni. The defense has not played well at all this season. The defense was the issue yesterday. I didn't think it was the offense's problem at all. The defense just could not stop the Chargers when they had to. They could not get off the field. Is Jonathan Gannon the sole cause of that? I would tend not to think so. He's part of it. I mean, I think there's a talent problem. There's a talent issue on the defense. I think that's a big problem.
Well, at what point, Mike, for whoever, the head coach steps in and say, look, this isn't working. You got it. I get it. This is what you want to do. It's not working, though. And if something happens, you can blame me. Is that something that's plausible?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think they're a very frustrating defense to watch right now. And you hear it. I heard you talking before I came on. You saw it in our readers react comments in the Press of Atlantic City. Everybody wants to pressure the quarterback. They want an active defense. They want a defense that forces turnovers. And right now, it just seems like the Eagles are playing a passive defense, like they're playing a bend but don't break defense, but they're breaking and they're bending. They're not getting either one done, and it's not working. So I think that's a frustration. And you're seeing quarterbacks have sort of career days. David Carr a couple of weeks ago, Herbert yesterday. Just completing an insane amount of passes. And I think the biggest problem is just the passiveness of the defense. And people feel like the defense isn't out there. They're not doing anything to make things happen.
Yeah, I mean, they blitzed more yesterday than they have all season long. 30% of dropbacks they blitzed yesterday, and it just didn't work. I mean, I think they do have a little bit of a personnel issue, but wouldn't you agree that Slay and Nelson are better than any group of corners that they've had here?
In the last couple of years, yes.
Yeah.
I can go back to some of the classic defensive backfields, but the last couple of years they have. And their strength of those guys is sort of man-to-man coverage, I guess. And if you're not using them in that sort of way, you're wasting them, basically. You have these talented cornerbacks and you're getting nothing out of them because you're not allowing them to do what they do well. And I think that also is driving the fans nuts, basically.
Yeah, I mean, because, Mike, as much as I've been critical, I don't know where you stood on Sirianni, overall, I thought he was terrible game plan. He at least understood what I did well. They ran the ball almost 40 times yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, he has adjusted the offense the last 2 weeks, and at least he's showing that he can learn from some mistakes, adjust the game plan. Like I said, I thought the offense played well yesterday. I thought Jalen Hurts had a couple of bad throws, but I thought for the most part, he's played pretty well yesterday too. I thought they scored enough points to win, but defensively, They're just not getting it done. And it says to me, too, you heard a lot of these complaints when Schwartz was here, too. Well, we don't pressure the quarterback enough. We don't blitz enough. We're not creating enough turnovers. And that says to me, if you're hearing some of the same complaints you heard under Schwartz that you're hearing under Gannon, maybe it's the players.
Hey, look, I'm not here to tell you that this players are very good. I think they sacked the quarterback. I think they were top 5 in the league in sacks last year, though, as a team, no?
I believe they were up there, and that's another thing so far this year. They haven't really been getting to the quarterback on a consistent basis, but they're a year older. Fletcher Cox is a year older. Guys are a year older. They've had some injuries on that defensive line, which has also hurt them. It's hard to say. I just think it's an aging maybe defense, and it's an aging passive defense, and that's driving the fans nuts, basically. And yesterday, I think you put that loss on the defense. They could not get off the field. They could not get a stop when they had to. They didn't stop the Chargers at all day. The Chargers stopped themselves. The only 2 times they got stopped was when they went for it on 4th down. The Eagles stopped them on those plays, but the Chargers could have kicked field goals on both those drives and came away with points on both those drives.
Right, and then you had, of course, another offsides, a penalty by Derek Barnett. That was a big play in the game. I mean, there was a lot in this game, but I like Sirianni. I thought the offensive game plan, he simplified things. He's sticking to the run. He asked Hurts to make a couple plays, which he did. He missed a couple throws, which he's got to make moving forward. But you're right. The offense made their adjustments. The defense has to adjust. And you go back to that game yesterday, it's a winnable game at home. And I know people don't want to hear anything about playoffs, but the Atlanta Falcons, who, Mike, the Eagles destroyed, and the rhetoric after that game was, well, Atlanta sucks. They're the worst team in the league. They're in the playoffs right now.
I looked at that before I came on. They're 4-4, and right now, if the season ended today, they'd have that number 7 spot, which is hard to believe considering how they looked on that opening day. But even that game, you go back to, you talk about how these games change. I mean, the Falcons moved the football down the field on those first 2 possessions against the Eagles defense, and they didn't come away with any points, or they kicked field goals. I can't remember. If they scored touchdowns on both those drives, maybe that game's a different game. So I just think the Eagles, it's frustrating. You look at the Giants have kind of lost a ton of games, like the Eagles lost yesterday. Both teams are 3-6. I think fans see both teams as being close to maybe, turning it around, but, close isn't good enough in the NFL. And, as a result, both teams are kind of in the midst of frustrating seasons right now.
Yeah. And look, this isn't you're a playoff team. You're a Super Bowl team. But these are games that are winnable games. And if the goal is to win games to try to make the playoffs, hey, I get it. There's a lot of fans out there who don't want to win. They want a draft pick. But look, you're there to win. These are winnable games with the players that they currently have, which tells me, hey, if you had better game plans, better preparation, you might not be thinking this team's as bad as it is.
Well, and the thing, we'll see what happens right now. I mean, we're not the only ones here that sees what's going on here. I gotta believe that Sirianni and Gannon are both looking at the defense and saying, we're not getting the job done defensively. We have to improve. It doesn't make any sense to me that Sirianni would say, okay, recognize there's an issue with the offense and kind of correct that the last 2 weeks and kind of not, and let the defense sort of continue to wander down the same path they were wandering down. Maybe it's a talent issue, but it's definitely a frustrating issue. And if you look at the game yesterday, I mean, that loss is on the defense and their ability to stop the Chargers when they had to.
All right, Mike, we'll flip over real quick to the Sixers. They win again. Now, they're going to be shorthanded tonight. No Joel Embiid. He is tested for COVID. He now needs to at least go negative the next 2 times, or he might miss some time. Harris is still out. Thibault is still out. They got a bunch of guys out. Still no Simmons. Apparently, the Celtics have some interest in Simmons. How does this team continuing to crank out victories?
They deserve all the credit in the world. You got to give Doc Rivers and the guys that are playing all the credit in the world. I see reports of that trade today with the Sixers and the Boston Celtics. Boy, if Daryl Morey can trade Ben Simmons for Jaylen Brown, Daryl Morey should be arrested and sent to Springfield, both places, because that's the biggest steal maybe in Sixers history. That would be a heck of a trade for the Philadelphia 76ers if they can pull off Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons. Imagine the Sixers with Jaylen Brown, 24, 25-year-old Jaylen Brown in the Danny Green spot. I mean, that improves the Sixers immeasurably. If Morey can make that trade, it's outstanding. Now, the loss of Embiid for who knows how long is going to be a problem, especially with the way their schedule is the next couple of days. They play tonight against the Knicks, tomorrow against Milwaukee. They're home on Thursday, and then they hit the West Coast for 6 big games. So this is a big stretch. But right now, the Sixers deserve all the credit in the world. Got to give credit to guys like Seth Curry, Maxey, George Niang. These guys have come up and played a lot better than I thought they were going to play this season, and they deserve all the credit in the world right now.
Now they're 8-2. You tweeted out the other night. Why do you want Simmons back? Why create the drama?
Right. I mean, why are they, with the way they're playing, why do they put themselves back in the news saying they're going to fine Simmons, saying they're going to do this? They want to know Simmons. Again, just trade Simmons at this point. Trade him for what I was a guy who said you got to get a difference maker, you got to get this, you got to get that. I'm coming around to the point of just don't give them away, but just trade them. Why create?
The hard part though with Mike is if you add up 3 role players, as Morey hinted at, where are they playing? Who are you going to just add more? It's going to be like the Celtics team from a couple of years ago. They didn't have enough minutes for all these guys.
Well, I think that's why, you can add a difference maker. And obviously the weak spot, if you look at that starting lineup right now, the weak spot is the Danny Green spot. He's 35 years old. He's probably better suited for coming off the bench right now than he is for starting. So if you can add a spot there and also bring in a veteran point guard to sort of secure another ball handler, because, they have Maxey and Milton, and then they really don't have another ball handler on the roster. So those are the 2 positions that I believe you need to upgrade. But they're playing better now without Simmons than they were if Simmons comes back. The quick point here, last year everybody said, when people questioned whether or not Ben Simmons was any good, all the analytics guys would tell me, well, look at the 3-point shots he creates. Look at the open threes he gets from people. Well, the Sixers are shooting lights out from 3-point range this year. They're getting a ton of open looks. They're a better team without Ben Simmons, and I don't know why the team at this point wants to force a square peg into a round hole. They've got to improve the Danny Green spot. They need another ball handler. If you can use Simmons to get those 2 things, I mean, that's what you got to look like at this point.
Hey, 30 seconds, Mike. What was the storyline of the high school football weekend?
Big high school football weekend. We got 3 teams, Ocean City, Cedar Creek, and Millville, all win big in the first round. You can take a look at our football MVPs on pressofac.com right now to take a look at who had big weekend last weekend. So those 3 public school teams advance, and the 3 non-public teams, St. Augustine, Holy Spirit, and St. Joe Academy, get into action this week. So 6 press area teams still going for championships in the high school football playoffs.
There we go. Good weekend. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City at AC Press McGarry. Thank you, Michael.
All right, we'll see you. Thanks.
All right, he's back on Wednesday as we'll take a look at what's happening throughout the area. Sixers, Eagles, Phillies, if they make some moves. We shall find out thanks to Mike McGarry here on the Sports Bash. There you go. There's your sounder. There's your opportunity. Register now for 99 bottles. It all happens Wednesday, November 24th. Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. You heard the tickets. Eagles club box seats, Sixers, Flyers, and more. 609-573-3776. Good luck. All right, just after 3, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Scott Grayson has Grayson's grades posted right now at 97.3ESPN.com for the Eagles' loss to the Chargers. It's one of those games where at the end of the day, it's a frustrating loss because it was a winnable game. What that means in the grand scheme of things, I can't tell you. Are they a playoff team? Are they going to win the Super Bowl? Are they a playoff team? Probably not. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? Definitively not. But Scott Grayson, that's the kind of game that you look back on and say, man, you had a chance to win that game. And I got to go back to the fact that I just don't think you were prepared enough to win that game. The game plan cost you again.
Yeah, it really did. And, quite frankly, my issues, as I'm sure many people's are strictly with the defense. I think the offense did enough to win that game. They did it, they scored to tie it. Whether or not they would have won if they got the ball back, I wasn't seeing the Chargers really able to stop them. So, I would have loved to have seen what happened if they got the ball back. And I thought when they scored with 6+ minutes left that they would have gotten it back at some point, whether it was behind or even tie, but they never got the chance. And I think that's what's so disappointing is that with more than 6 minutes left, the Chargers ran all the time off the clock and won the game without, don't give me the 2 seconds, that you didn't get the ball back. You never got the chance to try to answer and win the game. And that's frankly on the defense. And I got to tell you, Mike, I'm seeing stubborn Jonathan Gannon, and I just got to wonder why. And I know he's going to get the chance to speak later this week, and I'll be curious to see what the line of questioning is for him as well as what his answers are, because you're hearing. I mean, we heard Fletcher Cox. You heard Javon Hargrave last night after the game. These guys are trying. They're stumbling over themselves, trying not to say publicly what would start everybody pointing the fingers, and it's really hard for them at this point now.
Well, and, we'll go to the grades here, and Jonathan Gannon, obviously, to me, he got an F. You gave him an F as well. Nick Sirianni said it after the game, and I got to give him a little bit of flack here too. As much as I think Sirianni, he learned from what he did well, and people questioned whether he was going to do it again, and he ran the ball 39 times. Excessive, yes. Does he have to do it 40 times a week? No. But at least he said, I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to make some adjustments. Well, he said yesterday, my name goes on that game plan. Okay. At what point? Herbert completed 16 straight passes. At what point against the zone, by the way? 16 for 16 against the zone covered. At what point as the head coach do you say, I made the adjustments, you need to get out of this defense before I start calling the damn defense, and you don't want that to happen?
No, I don't think any of us want that to happen. When you look at that, Mike, you brought. I agree and disagree a little bit. I agree with your thoughts that Sirianni has put the bullseye on himself a little bit and said, yes, I am a part of this as well. I disagree in the sense that Gannon is the one calling the defense. He's the one calling the plays. He's the one coming up with the scheme. He's the one prepping these guys. And something else that was said, after the game as well. I forget if it was TJ Edwards or Hargrave that said this, but they said they did things we weren't expecting. Part of the job of a coach throughout the week is to make sure that you see things from the scout team and from the in practice that help you recognize it pre-snap and are able then to address it and know what you're supposed to do in those situations. I got a real problem if these guys are seeing a lot of things they're not expecting. The other team only has a week as well. They can't be throwing out a whole new playbook every week at you that you're not prepared for. So there's a problem with the coaching, with the prep. I agree with you that, look, if Sirianni has a problem with the play calls defensively, he has every right to go over there and demand some blitzes, some extra pressure from somewhere. Don't play zone. Don't play this 10 yards off the receiver stuff and then back up from the first down marker and give them that. I don't understand. 84% completion percentage. I mean, at some point within that, you're right, 16 straight at 1.2. And this is the 5th quarterback this season to get 80% or better completion percentage. This is a problem. It's a trend, and it's definitely something that needs to be fixed.
Yep, no question about it. And, the big thing is, hey, Sirianni made the adjustments. People called for him to run. He ran. It worked, and he stuck with it. I'll give him credit because he got lambasted on this segment here. A couple of Fs for his game plan. His game plan wasn't the problem. His game plan gave this team a chance to win the football game. And for Gannon to not make an adjustment. Now, I did see they blitzed yesterday 30% of dropbacks, which was more than any other game. So that didn't work either. I mean, so blitzing is not the answer to go after the quarterback that's what fans want. They want to blitz, 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 blitz. Doesn't always work.
No, most of the blitzing they did was in the first half when they were holding the Chargers to 7 points. And so you wonder, well, then why did you get away from that? Maybe it was because Darius Slay got hurt. But the biggest problem is you can't get to the quarterback if he can get the ball out quickly. Well, how do you keep him from getting the ball out quickly? By playing tighter coverage so he can't just get it out and throw it in a general area and it's going to be caught. So I think the problem really lies with the passive coverage and the zones that are easy for these teams to read. Obviously, these guys are well scouted. They're prepared. They come to play the Eagles, and I'm sure they're chomping at the bit. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater's got to be looking at this week going, oh, good, now it's my turn to put up some great numbers and throw for more than 80% completions. I think the problem is that the coverage is just too soft. It's way too soft. It's not even partially soft. And you can't really blame the defensive line when you're only sending 70% of the time, and that those 4 guys are getting blocked by 5 and sometimes 6 guys that they were keeping in. They know they don't need to send out that many receivers. They're playing soft. There's soft spots in the zone all over the place, and these quarterbacks can just pick it apart.
John Gannon got an F from you. Sirianni, you gave a B, and he's growing in this role. I'll give him credit. I agree. I thought his game plan offensively gave them a shot to win the game yesterday.
It did, and you're right. He's growing, and I'm not quite the as far down the road to say that great. He's changed yet. It's been 2 games, 2 positive signs from this offense to see them moving the ball and putting up points again. That's what we liked at the beginning of the season. They were scoring, and then they stopped doing that, and the defense was bad for a few weeks. And now at least they've gotten this offense back on track. It seems to be more in line with what Jalen Hurts will give you and what his skill set allows. Now, they did play 2 pretty bad teams at stopping the run, so it was almost like – it was right there on a big poster saying you have to run the ball against these guys. Now I want to see if they can continue to do it against some of these other teams they have coming up. You look at Denver and the Broncos, and I just want to see them. You're right. I don't need you to run it 40 times a game, but when you're only giving your running backs 3 carries, that's a problem. And the other thing I'm going to be curious to see is what happens when Miles Sanders comes back, because what you have with Howard and Scott are 2 pretty good change of pace backs, and they've shown you that right now. But neither one of them are the type that are going to really break one for you and score on a long run. We know Miles Sanders has that ability to do that. And this offensive line, I mean, you got to include them as well in giving credit when they're running the ball like this. This offensive line has blocked really well in the run. They owned the trenches yesterday.
Yeah.
Those were long drives they went on. And quite frankly, to their credit, they've limited the penalties that they were having. And that's another thing that I want to give Sirianni credit for. He said, I had to rip those plays out of the playbook where they were getting called for being downfield too early on some of those screens. And that's why he was irate yesterday with some of the officials, as you may have saw, because he felt that the Chargers were doing that and not getting called for it.
Well,
so he's saying, I ripped up part of my plays, and now you're allowing them to do that.
Yeah, there was a play that was clear, and there was some video where the guy's at least 4 or 5 yards down the field. They didn't call it. That play, the Barnett penalty, I mean, that kills you again. There's another play where Barnett, I don't think you included him in the F category. I think he was lumped in with the defensive line. But, I mean, Barnett gets an F. That's an F. That play is a game changer potentially. I know 3rd and 6, maybe they convert it, but it goes to 3rd and 1. You get the stop on 3rd and 1, but then it's so close that they go again.
Yeah, and that play was, quite frankly, Derek Barnett's season in a nutshell, because you looked at what was going on in that game, and I tell you right now, everybody on that Chargers sideline was not convinced that their kicker was going to make that kick from back there where he was. That run by Eckler was so huge a couple of plays after that penalty to get that kick to be more like an extra point, because he missed an extra point earlier in the game. It was only his 2nd game with the team. He's struggled at times this season, and they were not, I think, convinced he was going to make it from back there had the Eagles stopped them on 3rd and 6. So that penalty, was extremely huge. And Derek Barnett has consistently made those. You could see some of the players react in the moment once Barnett went across the line, like, oh, not again. And that's the big thing, Mike. Let's string that out a little bit. I watched some of these guys some of the footage we had at Fox coming off the field, after the game. There's Jason Kelce shaking his head. Nobody around him, just shaking his head, walking off the field. The body language here is starting to turn. And you got to wonder, these guys are not stupid. They know. They should have won that game yesterday. Yeah. They did enough, and they didn't get it.
Grayson, you're right. That's a game where you're walking off the field. You lost at home again, and you felt that you had a good enough thing going to win that game. And the penalty on Slay is horrible. The holding call on him, that's a bad call. He ends up getting hurt on that play. He has to leave the game. The Barnett call, just 2 plays. And then, obviously, you gave Hurts and Sirianni just spoke. We're going to play that as soon as your segment's over here. We'll play that press conference. You gave Hurts a B on the day. They didn't ask him to do a lot, 11 to 17, but he missed 2 big throws that he has to make. He has to make those 2 throws. You're only getting asked to throw the ball 17 times. You got 2 guys wide open that are 6 points each. You can't miss those.
Yeah, and I think, what you're seeing is a little bit of growth, and I like the maturity and the leadership out of Hurts. I've talked about that before. After the game, he owned it. He admitted, he flat out admitted, I've got to hit those. I've got to hit Goddard on that. He said he couldn't follow through on his throw, but that's part of the learning, I think, that goes in an early stage of a quarterback's career is you have to know how to feather that ball even when you can't follow through. He was wide open. All he had to do was drop it in there, and it almost did. He almost did. And you look at then the other one that I think you're thinking of is the Devontae Smith in the end zone. I think the route, and this is what you look at with what the Eagles are doing defensively. A little bit of contact can just mess up timing just a little bit. And yes, Jalen Hurts was backpedaling. He threw kind of going the wrong direction, so he wasn't able to get the accuracy and maybe the zip on it he wanted to put it where he wanted exactly. But if you watch the replay as well, Smith kind of got rubbed off his route just a little bit, and it was enough that the timing between the 2 guys was messed up. But yes, those are plays that make the difference certainly between a win and a loss. And yes, Jalen Hurts played well. He's playing well. He is making strides along with this offense. The run he had to kind of go over and somersault over that first down marker late in the game, that's clutch. That is clutch time where you need to make a play, and he did it. And so there's growth that has to happen. He owns it immediately after the game. And to me, that's a little refreshing from what we had in Carson Wentz. I think you're seeing that leadership quality here. Now, Hurts just has to continue to build on that because, again, this team still has to figure out what they're doing at that position moving forward beyond this year.
Well, and Scott, Sirianni has grown as a play caller and a play designer. He's added this run game. You can't run 40 times a week and think you're going to win. But what he can do is build off of the run and start to implement some more play action, some more things. Like I feel like Quez Watkins is completely out of this offense, right?
The problem is when you only throw 17 times, everybody's going to say Goddard's got to get more targets. Devontae Smith, look, you've got to get him more targets. And Quez Watkins, you got to give him more targets. At this point, take Jalen Reagor out. What I saw on that screen one time yesterday, that screenplay was atrocious. He has consistently not run the screens well, so I don't know why you're continuing to go there. I completely agree. I want to see a little more Quez Watkins. It doesn't even need to be targets. I like the use of him on a jet sweep. Once or twice in a game. I think when you're pounding the middle like they have been, you can really get a guy creeping in and trying to cheat on the corner, and that play can hit for a decent gain like it did against the Lions, last week. So I think, yes, you've got to get Quez Watkins involved more. You've got to get, Goddard involved. I want to see him get more targets because he's just been nice. And the play action was there. Here's the problem, though. When you're not winning the time of possession battle and your defense can't get off the field, you're only going to get so many possessions a game. Therefore, you're only going to have so many touches available. And that's part of the problem right now. And you hear Sirianni begging. He's begging for his defense to get a turnover and give his offense an opportunity to work with a short field as well. And that stuff isn't happening either.
I would imagine that it's very frustrating that, hey, I've made some adjustments. My defensive coordinator, who I've poked the bear a little bit, hasn't made the same adjustments. Now, the question goes back to, Scott, it's been 5 of the top-tier quarterbacks. They don't face top-tier guys really the rest of the way here. Do we anticipate that will change the defense? Like that will change the outcome for the defense? You're facing, you got Bridgewater next week. You got Trevor Siemian coming up here. You've got Daniel Jones I mean,
no, you're definitely right. I mean, the level of and quality of play of those quarterbacks on a consistent basis is certainly not going to be there. And so that does beg the question, what kind of defense will Gannon call? And I would imagine it'll be more like the defense we saw against the Lions. I got to believe, look, I would love to know what conversations are going on. This guy has been hammered more today than after any other game this season so far because it was so egregious what happened. And now human nature would have to say that you're going to modify what you're going to do a little bit because I got to believe that seat that he's sitting on is pretty hot and talking about Gannon and Sirianni by extension. That the two of them, I mean, okay, Nick, you want to say you're on this a little bit, then you got to show a more aggressive game plan. And I said this last night on TV. I think the one thing that this town wants is if you're going to lose, go down being aggressive. Don't sit back and let people keep punching you in the face and punching you in the face and moving the ball and then scoring. If you're going to go down, be aggressive. If you've blitzed and they beat the blitz, at least you're trying is what it looks like. And you're facing lesser quarterbacks now. And I said this too. If you want somebody to make a mistake, don't wait for them to make a mistake on their terms. You have to force the issue. And you don't even have to get there in terms of getting a sack, but just get close enough. Hit the quarterback. How many years did that work with Eli Manning in New York? All you had to do was hit him, and he got scared, and he'd start throwing the ball to your defense. So you talk about lesser quarterbacks. I got to believe that we will see a little bit of a different defense as they get beyond Teddy Bridgewater and down the list that you named. So where does this team end up, Mike? We talked about it last week. They're still knocking on the door of a playoff spot. They're not that far out.
Well, you know the narrative, Scott. We hear it all the time. I bring up playoffs. People say, ha, playoffs. You know how many Jim Mora memes I get sent to me because I'm the one guy saying, look, they're there. I don't care whether you think they're good or not. This isn't me saying this is a good football team. They got to make the playoffs. This is the 7th seed. They beat the Falcons, Scott. And what was the Monday narrative? The Falcons suck. They're horrible. Yep. They're the worst team. Well, guess what? They're 4-4, and they're in the playoffs right now. The next team on the list of the playoff is Carolina. You've already beaten Carolina, and they're 4-5. If you would have won that game yesterday, you'd be 4-5, a half game behind a team that you've already beaten. Minnesota, did they impress anybody? I'm not impressed when I watch Minnesota play. The one team I think you can start to say, all right, Seattle's going to get Russell Wilson back this week. He has been cleared. San Francisco, they got big problems. Chicago, they got problems. So I get it. This isn't Philadelphia is talented and a playoff team. This is, sadly, they are in the mix for this. And look, I know there's fans out there that have the mentality now. We've shifted as a society that we'd rather lose and get draft picks. Nobody wants to make the playoffs anymore. We just want to lose and get draft picks. That's great. If you have that mentality, I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying mathematically they're right there, and they should have won that game yesterday. That would have put them pretty much there.
Right. So you spin it forward and you say, well, okay, what do you want to see the rest of this season? Because we're now at the halfway point. And for me, I want to see this offense continue to grow. I want to see Jalen Hurts in this style of offense continue to try to grow himself because, like I said, you still got to answer the question of who's going to play quarterback here next year. And I think through that process, you can get there and find that answer. As far as the defense goes,
here's something on that, Scott.
What you're going to get, but you're right.
Here's something on that, Scott. Wouldn't you want Hurts to answer the question definitively by winning these games and playing well? Doesn't that then take away the necessity to get a quarterback? Like, if you're an Eagles fan, you should want to win these games with Hurts playing well so that you don't need to go get a quarterback and you can use the draft capital you have to fix your damn defense.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Right now, if you're telling me that they're playing good enough to beat the Chargers at home, to beat some of these other teams with the way this offense is going right now, but the defense is the reason why they're not, then that answers at least that question. To play it forward with your question, I know everybody's used to the tanking around here. We have the Sixers, and look where that's gotten them at this point. You want draft picks. I understand that. You're still going to have Miami's. It's still going to be a top 5 pick. You're still going to have Indianapolis's, which maybe that's top 10, maybe not. You're still going to get 2 quality players potentially ahead of the one you're going to have for yourself. in my opinion, I'd rather see Jalen Hurts. I don't care if they have to go to Green Bay and play a playoff game. Getting that not only Jalen Hurts, a Devontae Smith, a Dallas Goedert, get some of these guys, these young players, a Jordan Mailata who's, could use a playoff game under his belt. Get some of these young guys to have that playoff experience and understand what that environment's like. Because look, you're not going to make a run this year. But why does it hurt to get that experience, be a playoff team, and then have something to build off of? Look, your head coach, I doubt he's going to be fired this year. So you've got now playoff experience for him. Maybe your defensive coordinator does, but you look at the rest of it, and I'm in the camp that if you can get in, and I think they can, given the weak schedule, how well the offense is starting to play, and the fact that the defense really can't play much worse in some of these games against lesser opponents, there's no reason in my mind they're not sitting there at the end of the season at 8-9, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and again, stressing, this is not hey, the Eagles are better than you're giving them credit for. This is acknowledging that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, those teams are all very flawed teams. But if I'm an Eagles fan right now, I think you said about it. The Eagles need a linebacker. You're not drafting a linebacker in the top 5.
No.
They need a safety. You're not drafting a safety in the top 5. What are you going to do with 3 top 5 picks? Realistically, what are you drafting with 3? Like, people want these. We got to have the best 3 picks possible. We got to have 2, 3, and 4. What are you? You're not taking a left tackle, which is something you take at that spot. There's not a quarterback in this draft that I would take in the top 5.
Not now,
so
no.
What position do you need 3 top 10 draft picks for, realistically?
And I look no further than the Dallas Cowboys, and I know they flat out stunk yesterday. But what did they do? They got a lot younger with some good draft picks on defense, and look how it's changed their team. So if you were doing enough to win offensively at this point, which scoring 24 points is enough, then why not use at least 2 of those draft picks to address some needs on defense, get younger? Because look how getting younger has suddenly helped your offense. We're not talking about the number of injuries piling up like we always did the last couple of seasons. And that's partly because you got younger guys in there whose bones are not ready to just start breaking and getting brittle. I mean, Landon Dickerson last year, I don't know if anybody noticed this, but he was having trouble getting up after every play in almost the entire second half. And that guy, tip of the cap, because he continued to stay in there and play and gut it out. He's a young guy trying to prove something. Why not put that mentality on defense? Because I think this defense needs it. And if you just do that, you've already probably won a few more games next season that puts you in a different position.
Grace's grades are posted right now at 973ESPN.com. Check out the full set of grades over there now at 973ESPN.com. All right, Scott, good conversation, man.
Yeah, as always, enjoyed it. Thanks, Mike.
You can check out Scott on Fox 29. And, of course, Grayson's grades every Monday after Eagles football here on 97.3 ESPN. An F for John Gannon. An F, John Gannon. All right, when we come back, you'll hear from Nick Sirianni. The Nick Sirianni presser is on the other side at 4 o'clock. Mosher, Ben Simmons, the latest. Go to 97.3ESPN.com. A rival team is interested. When I say rival, maybe their biggest rival. The details now at 97.3ESPN.com. All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Hey, by the way, I want to congratulate Jason in Millville, Frank in Egg Harbor Township, and John in Egg Harbor Township. They have qualified for 99 bottles, and they're going to be going to Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House November 24th for this year's 99 bottles party. I'm your host, Mike Gill. What's up, everybody? Well, the Eagles lose. We got a lot to dive into. We're going to hear from Nick Sirianni right now concerning yesterday's loss and see if he has changed his tune a little bit on John Gannon's defense. What did he like in the game? What still needs to be worked on? I'm telling you here, this season is not a lost season yet. There's so much to find out about this team. We're going to get into that. Plus, don't forget, football at 4 is on the way with Jeff Mosher. But right now, here is Nick Sirianni heading to the podium, and we will hear him live right now on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Here is the Eagles head coach.
Hey, John. Curious, from your perspective as an offensive coach, we've talked a lot about completion percentage and over 80% by opposing quarterbacks. How do you make that more difficult? How do you stop that? From your perspective, what makes things difficult?
Yeah, I think when you give them a disguise and you throw off the timing just a little bit. So that can be a couple different ways, right? You can throw off the timing by getting a little pressure. You can throw off the timing by disguising the coverage and confusing the quarterback on where to go. You can throw off the timing with some reroutes and some press coverage as well. So whether they're rerouting in a cover 2 scheme or they're rerouting and getting up in the face and man-to-man, those are all different ways that you can accomplish that. Those different things. Again, different things that we're trying. That's John. That is something that again, that I kind of talk about into the defense. The way I speak to the defense is more so in the sense of, hey, here's what's difficult for me as a coordinator. So that's why I say first and foremost, whatever the issues are on this team, offensively, defensively, special teams wise, it all starts with me and me first. And so, again, because I do have that expertise as an offense to be able to share that information with the defense, and it's my job to be able to get some of those things worked into the equation.
Go ahead, Martin, and then Dave Zingaro.
And if I could follow up with that a little bit. Javon was saying yesterday that, Justin Herbert was getting the ball out really quickly, which kind of prevented the pass rush from getting home. And I think Fletch said that after the game against the Raiders with Derek Carr. How can you kind of combat that as well? I mean, if the quarterback's releasing the ball really quickly.
Yeah, first thing first is we watch the tape. We all have to be on the same page. That starts with us coaching it, that we're, hey, if they do this motion, if they line up in this formation, if they're in this bunch, and if they're in this stack, we need to be in this. And so if not, defense is quite unique in the sense that if one guy doesn't do his job or one guy's off on a different page, then the whole thing can look messed up. So, but that's us coaching it first, coaching it better first to get the guys doing that. So, we had a couple pre-snap and post-snap mental errors that gave them some freebies, but it is a good spin off of that question because it is pretty similar to what I just said, right? To get the quarterback to hold it, in this quick game, when it really comes down to that quick game and being the 2 seconds out before the ball, with him having the ball and getting him out in 2 seconds, it's the disruption from the secondary. It's hard, because if they're getting it out in 2 seconds, the pass rush isn't going to get there, right? And so it's the disruption in the secondary. It's whether it's cover 2 with some reroutes, whether it's a different type of zone with some reroutes, or the press man-to-man out there that deters that thing from getting out that quick.
Go ahead, Dave, and then Josh Tolentino.
Hey, Nick, has Jordan Howard earned a role going forward even when Miles gets back? And how do you figure out how to get him on the roster if that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, he's played really good football these last 2 games. I'm sure glad we have him. And yeah, I mean, that's something that we don't have to think about right now. And I'm really in a short term point of view in mind. And that's just, I think, the way you have to think in this league, like that you can't think about what happened in the past. You learn from it and you get better from it, but you got to be in the moment. And, so that will be, Miles isn't back yet. So I don't have to think about it. I got a lot of other things I got to think through. Right. And solve and problem solve and everything like that. It's one thing I have to, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, that I don't have to think about right now. But is he playing good football? Absolutely. Are we happy that he's on this roster? Absolutely. And we're getting a spark offensively from Jordan Howard. And so, he's done a great job of carrying the football and being aggressive with the football. And offensive line has done a good job opening up holes for him. And so, we look forward to continuing that with him for these. Especially for this game against Denver.
Go ahead, Josh, and then Bo Wolf.
Hi, Nick. Hope your Monday's going well so far.
Thanks, Josh.
In working with you every day over the past few months, we've learned that you're very committed to your 1% better every day, and winning that specific day. But Nick, I'm wondering, when it comes to the big picture, though, I'm wondering, how involved are you in, I guess, conversations with Howie, specifically when it comes to identifying parts of the roster you'd like to improve in order to I guess, fully develop into the team that you want to become and have here?
Yeah, good question, Josh. We talk about everything. Howie and I, we talk about everything, the communication with everything, right? And so players, that's obviously our biggest talking point is the players on this football team. And so it's everything. Like we're evaluating. He's getting, we're talking through who played well, who played poorly, who played okay. Why they did what they did. What all sorts of things like that. So there are so many pieces to getting better every single day. And you're 100% right, Josh. This isn't that is a big part of it, right? Of the guys out there. I think we have everybody in this building that we need to win football games. And so, again, we gotta play better. We got to coach better to be able to do that. But I think you've seen us in a spot where when we're playing consistent, we can play pretty well, but it's the consistency's not there right yet, consistently. And so, that's my job as a head coach to get it there. But I do believe we have everybody in this building we need to win this division and to win football games, to be able to move on. Again, I don't want to sit here and say anything about, to win this game right here. We only think about this one game right here. And so, I believe we have good pieces on this team, and I'm excited to work with all the pieces on this team. But with as far as the discussion of players and what we're looking for, and we have constant communication with that, so yeah, I'm very appreciative of the open relationship between our personnel department and our coaching department.
Thanks.
Bo and then Mike K.
Hey Nick, I have a couple really quick game management questions from yesterday. The 5 on the opening drive, how much of a toss-up was that? Did you consider going for it? There was the Donald Parham catch along the sideline that looked like it could have been challengeable. Did you think about that? And then did you consider going for 2 when you scored at the end of the game with 6 minutes left?
Yeah, all good questions. The 4th and 5, I was thinking if we got that thing to 4th and 3, that I was gonna be pretty aggressive with that 4th and 5, and I was gonna go for it. 4th and 5, we had just had the 3rd and 5 one, that Dallas, ran a good route. Jalen got a little pressure, and we missed that. But he did get a little pressure on that right side. And then when you pin a guy, I felt really good. Aaron's really been kicking the ball well and punting the ball well. And so I felt he has a good spin on that football. Like I see it every day in practice that if you put Aaron in a position where we were on the field right there, that he was going to pin it inside the 5, and the ball hit at the 3, and the kickback came, and Zach and Andre did a really good job of getting down there. To us, that's an explosive play. And so you look at explosive plays on offense, you look at explosive plays on defense. But, an explosive play on special teams, there's different formulas to get that. Our explosive play on special teams in the punt game, just so you guys know, if you pin them inside the 5, we count that as explosive play. And if you get a stop on defense when their team's backed up, we think about that as a score. That's Gannon screaming that into the headset of, hey, we stop them, I'm backed up, we get points. And so I felt good about that decision. Did it work out? No, they ended up going down 99 yards or 98 yards or whatever, 97 yards. And we stuffed them on 4th down. And then on offense, we didn't get the ball out of there. So they ended up scoring. The catch on the sideline, we got a good look of it upstairs. I got a good look of it at so I'm really trusting the guys upstairs to talk to me because they're seeing different feeds of that upstairs, right? They're seeing the television copies of that upstairs. They felt confident it was a catch. I saw it as well. I saw it live. I saw them get it tucked, and the guys at Lincoln Financial did a good job of showing it on the big screen. And so I saw it 2 times there, and I had a chance, they huddled for that play. So I had a chance to not only trust the guys up top, which I'm going to trust them a lot, but I also got to see it live twice. I saw it live, and then I saw it 2 times up there. I felt that he caught that football. And your third one going for 2 with 6 minutes left. So on that one right there, we always are thinking about that of, hey, if you go tie the game right there, if you tie the football game right there, and do you go for it to extend it? It was a little bit too early for that in my mind. It was 6 minutes left. I was hoping we'd get a stop and continue rolling on offense like we did. So it was definitely in the discussion, Bo, but I felt at that particular time, with that much time left on the clock, and the way we were playing on offense, that we were going to get the ball back and be able to do something with it, and it didn't work. So, but that's what I was thinking on all 3. I have no problem explaining to you what I was thinking on all 3. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike, and then Jeff McLean.
Hey, Nick. So from your Connect principle, I was curious, what's your outlook on body language? We saw during the neutral zone infraction that Josh Sweat and Fletcher Cox obviously were frustrated with the play, but how do you manage that behind closed, or I guess from a coaching standpoint, when you don't want another player to feel like they're kind of, getting the cold shoulder from the rest of the group? Yeah. And then also, with that said, though, what is the coaching point on Derek Barnett? Because it does seem like these penalties consistently happen with him.
Sure. Well, as far as the body language, I think that there are things that happen in the string of a game where our emotions show. Like, listen, I'm an emotional guy, and so I don't want to be judged on things that happen sometimes in the game with my emotions, and because it is an emotional game. So I understand that, and I think, when something like that happens, of course, we're like, oh gosh, like, I think that's just a natural reaction. But you always want to protect your teammates in every scenario that you're in. Whether that's a receiver doing this to a quarterback or a quarterback doing this to a receiver or a defense, that happens. Like, I understand that happens in a game. It's an emotional game, but I know those guys are tight in there. As far as Derek goes, right, he's had 2 of those big ones, in third down scenarios. And so, I do believe, just like the rest of the team, we're trending in the right way with our penalty situation. And so Derek's a defensive lineman, it's like I don't want to say it's exactly like this, but it does have the elements of a tight end who drops a pass. Like, that happen. It does happen. It can't happen in that situation, but it does happen. But I believe Derek's trending in the right direction, and he had a backfall yesterday. And so, again, I can't speak to. I think I just have to look at the element of work that I'm dealing with, that I've been here for, right? I can't speak to anything that's happened in the past. It's this 2021 season, and Derek had a penalty yesterday that he's going to want back. Jalen missed a throw that he's going to want back. Devontae missed a route that he's going to want back. I mean, that's just the nature of the game. But I got a lot of confidence in Derek. Derek made some nice plays. Derek is a guy that plays extremely hard, and extremely tough. And he made some nice plays in that game, and we were going over our couple good and our couple bad from the defense. Derek was on both of the couple good plays, and so he did some good things in that game. But he's going to want that penalty back. We want that penalty back. But I think we're trending in the right direction, and it's no different. They're correcting Derek's mistake as it is correcting an offensive lineman's mistake or whatever it is. So we're working through it. But I did think he played a solid game, and he always plays hard, and he always plays physical, and he always plays tough.
Go ahead, Jeff, and then Ruben Frank.
Nick, on Jalen's throw where he missed Devontae in the end zone, he mentioned obviously it was something he wanted to have back, and said he ended up throwing off his back foot. Mechanically, what could he done different on the drop? It's it was kind of an awkward drop. Is that the problem?
Yeah, it was. Jeff, they had shown a look there, and just let you in on some insight. They had shown a look there from that diamond front that they showed us, where they brought the 5, right? We're in empty protection, and they had brought the 5, but they've also added on the Mike linebacker, which would be bringing them 6, with us having 5 in protection. So I thought, as we're on the headset and we got that, so what we taught Jalen, right, in that scenario, that hey, if you get that 6, the defensive end on the outside is going to be the one that's free. You drift away from him and you make the play. And so, myself, Brian, Kevin Patullo, Shane, we're all in there like, oh, hey, here's that blitz. We still felt good about it. He just had to drift away from it. Well, they didn't bring the 5th guy. They didn't bring that extra linebacker, so we ended up being protected. So the coaching point is, hey, you were on the right point where you started that drift drop, because you got to trust what your preparation was all week. Hey, they showed this look. This is what they did off the look. I got to trust this preparation, just like us as coaches have to trust the preparation that we do as well. And, they ended up not bringing it. So what our point was to them is like, okay, they didn't bring it. You didn't have to drift as much right there. See if you can settle your feet and deliver it right there. Cause I thought Devontae ran a pretty good route. Again, I believe that Jalen is definitely going to be the first one to tell you he wants that throwback. I want that throwback for him. But there were some things he did in that game last night that I said it yesterday, and I stand by what I said, like that other players in this league can't make. So I thought he played a good, solid game. And that's the nature of his position, though, as we know, Jeff, right, is that, you lose a close game like that, and we're going to have to scrutinize everything, right? And that's how that's what we do. We correct and we do everything like that. And those plays, he's going to want those back, but he did enough to help us win that football game yesterday. I thought he played a solid game and played a really good game, actually.
We have time for 2 more, so we'll go to Rube and then Jimmy Kensky.
Hey, Nick, I wanted to ask you about the wide receivers other than Devontae. They haven't really been as involved over the last 4 or 5 weeks as they were the first few weeks, both Quez and Jalen. Greg hasn't been targeted in 4 or 5 weeks also, and J-Jaw, before he got hurt, had not been targeted. What's your level of concern about the guys other than Devontae not being involved, and how important is it to get them going?
Yeah, again, we're playing a certain way right now, and we're running the football, and we're play action passing. And so, you want to get Dallas going, you want to get Devontae going, of course, you want to get Quez going, Jalen. Like there's a lot of mouths to feed right there. But when we're doing it the way we're doing it right now and having some success on offense doing that way, I mean, something's got to sacrifice there. And so, we're always thinking about how we get the ball to Devontae and Dallas and Quez and Jalen. And sometimes their touches come, sometimes they don't. But I do know in this league that you have to be able to spread it around, right? So they can't just take away one guy and take away your passing game. And so, yeah, we always are thinking about how we're getting those guys the football. And it's just these last couple of weeks, it hasn't went that way, and I know that can be frustrating. But we got to do what we think we can do to win the football game offensively, and and sometimes that's going to sacrifice some of the touches on the perimeter. We can definitely manufacture things to get some guys the touches, but again, I don't want to sound coachy or cliche here, but there is only one football. You can only have so many, and you only have so many plays. And when you're running the ball like we were, and you play action it like we were, that was the right formula for us yesterday and the week before, in my opinion. And so, some guys are going to lack some touches there. But sometimes, a lot of times that evens itself out because you're not able to play that way every time, right? A defense can take away things and force you to do it different ways. So there's no doubt we're going to need them, and they're going to have to be patient and go, kind of like how Jordan Howard was, patient and went and was ready to roll when his time was called.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Hey, Nick. Lane said that Brandon Brooks would be out like 8 weeks, and I know he's not a doctor or a team spokesman or anything like that, but Sunday will be 8 weeks. So how's Brandon coming along? Are you expecting him back this week, next week, a little further along?
Yeah, still in discussion, Jimmy, with that. We'd be excited when we get Brandon back, but we're still in discussion there with what that is. So we got to see him. He's got to, he's going to have to go practice and when it's time to, but he obviously we talked through all those things. And so I'm still waiting. I don't have a great answer for you right now, Jimmy, but I'm still waiting with that. And we'll see. We'll have more information on that on Wednesday.
Thanks.
Thanks for the time.
All right, there's Nick Sirianni with a couple of insights there for us. We will dissect it all coming up during football at 4. Jeff Mosher will be here at the top of the hour, and you can hear that live on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, Paul Hudrick will talk about the latest Ben Simmons news. We'll have that for you still to come here on the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Football at 4. Paul Hudrick, one thought, every game. Casey Joyner, Jeff Kerr. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast with Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan. Of course, Mosher is here on a Monday. It is a Eagles loss that we will dive into right now, and Jeff Mosher is here thanks to our friends over at Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild West Tropicana Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. There's Jeff Mosher. If you're watching the video stream live, you can see him there. What's going on, Mosh?
Mike, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you, my friend. A winnable game yesterday. Would you concur?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Do you mean going into it or the way the game took form?
The way
it was obviously winnable the way it took form because they were
both,
right
really.
there.
I mean, they were a 1-point underdog at kickoff yesterday. But at the end of the day, should you be disappointed if you're an Eagles fan that you lost that game?
I think the Chargers are a better team. I think they've got obviously the quarterback completes 84% of his passes, and that's a really good thing for them. You can be disappointed, but to me, they lost to a team that's better than them. I mean, I think the Chargers are better than the Raiders. The Eagles got killed by the Raiders. They were competitive against the Chargers. Nobody wants to hear about improvements, but the bottom line is they have improved since that Chargers blowout, but they're still going to lose to teams that are better than them because they're not a very good team.
All right, so that the fact that they were in that game, you're saying is encouraging. You're saying that has shown some growth then.
I mean, I can't be alone in that opinion, right? Certainly over the last 2 weeks, the offense has scored more points. Well,
you're being rational to an irrational audience.
Well, and then I feel like we're going to probably have some discussion about that today with the defense. But I mean, it's hard for me to have a different reaction than other people. Other people who thought that the Eagles were going to be really good are probably disappointed. I didn't think the Eagles were going to be that good, and I thought this was a game they were going to lose, and they lost, and they were competitive.
I would say that I don't think here's like when I look like back to week 1, they lost to Atlanta, or they beat Atlanta, and they beat Atlanta up. And the reaction was, well, Atlanta's the worst team in the league. They're horrible. Mm-hmm. Well, Atlanta's in the playoffs right now. So you have at least shown you're on par with that team. So I feel like I'm in the boat with all these other teams that are in the mix with me right now. And if I have a game that's a winnable game at home, I can't the next day say I lost that game because I was not prepared.
Yeah, I don't think yes, I agree with you. You can't lose a game at this stage of the season because you're ill-prepared for your opponent. I don't think the Eagles were ill-prepared. Could they have done some things differently? Perhaps. But we've kind of said that with every game. It's always.
At what point, Jeff? At what point, like Sirianni said yesterday, look, I've blasted Sirianni for his game plan being lousy. Well, guess what? I'll give him credit. He learned from Detroit. I'm not saying he has to run it 40 times. I think it's almost excessive that he's running that much now, but he's learned. He has learned and evolved his game plan, okay?
Mm-hmm.
At what point does the head coach step in and say, dude, 16 straight completions, do something different?
Well, 16 straight completions weren't all against the same look, to be fair. I killed Jonathan Gannon, just like Sirianni, like most of us, after the first 5 or 6 weeks for a couple of things. One, I thought he was playing too many linebackers and not the right linebackers. He's changed that. His linebacker play is getting a little bit better.
I agree.
Especially with TJ Edwards in there. I felt he was playing too deep coverage and allowing runs because he doesn't have great run-stopping defensive lineman or great linebacker, huge linebacker that can do that. So what's he doing now? He is playing more safety in the box. And as we got further in the season, it said, hey, you can blitz a little bit too. Well, yesterday he blitzed more than he's blitzed all season. So I'm loving the reaction that now he's not playing his corners up on wide receivers enough, or now he's not. Like every time this guy changes something, it works like in a smaller sense. Like the linebackers are playing better, the blitzing can be a little bit, but it's not. He's got a bad defense. I don't know any other way to dress this up and get people to realize that maybe he's not a great play caller, and that's fine. I can accept that. but what he's putting out, he's not doing the same thing every week. He's trying to make changes. It's not working.
So you're suggesting this isn't a coaching situation. This is a personnel situation?
No, I think what I'm suggesting is, and this is just a day of listening to people talk about it, is that everybody thinks that this guy is completely terrible at his job and doesn't know what he's doing. And everybody keeps saying he needs to switch things up. He has switched things up. It's not working. What does that tell you? Nick Sirianni switched things up, right? And all of a sudden you saw better results. So either Jonathan Gannon is not making the right switches, which is hard to believe because there's only certain many things you can do, right? Or he's got a bad defense, or you have C, which is you have a bad defensive coordinator and a bad defense.
Well, I mean, look, I would think that you would agree with me that Slay and Nelson are better than any set of corners they've had here.
And I think you would agree with me that wide receivers are not hurt the Eagles this year. I mean, Mike Williams made an amazing catch. How many 30 to 40 yard catches?
Part of the reason why the receivers aren't hurting them is because, I mean, they're just letting them catch the ball in front.
Right, because that coverage is designed to keep everything in front.
Right,
and
well,
so now you're taking
the point that I'm making, Mosh, is, and look, I understand what you're saying, but his philosophy essentially is, hey, we're going to let you go on these long drives because at some point you're going to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay.
And they're not, right. They're not
making mistakes. So at that point, you have to decide, do I want to keep going with this theory that they're going to make a mistake, or am I going to have to try to force them into a mistake?
Mike, before yesterday, how many times did you see Steven Nelson and Avonte Maddox blitz the quarterback? Probably no, maybe once. I can't remember.
I would say no. And Nelson blitzed the quarterback yesterday and got called for hitting the quarterback.
Do you remember we used to talk about Jim Schwartz and like you got to blitz more, and then he would blitz and they would just get killed? Like,
look, I'm not saying they need to blitz more. That's not me saying they need to blitz. No, that's not what I'm saying. Right. I'm just asking, can they do something? Can they change their coverage? Can they put more on the plate of Slay and Nelson? Can they say, guys, we're going to depend on you more, so we're going to ask you to kind of press a little bit more. We're going to play you more man because we can't just keep sitting in this zone because we don't have enough talent in these other areas. You're the two guys I trust the most, and if we get beat once over the top, that's on me.
Yeah, he could. And I would say, and again, this is where we get into a territory of I don't know if it's all him, or both, but I would say if he's already made 3 changes and none of them work, what makes us think that this other tiny wrinkle, play your corners up a little bit more? Okay, Steven Nelson up on Mike Williams a little bit more. Now you're asking for those double moves. You will get beat over the top. And by the way, I've thought about this a lot. You're right that you still may force a more lower percentage pass, and you may force more incompletions. But if you're giving up the faster, explosive play, right? Let's say Justin Herbert completes only 65% of his passes, but he hits 4 big ones and they score touchdowns or set up easy touchdowns. Then you've done A, no difference, and B, you've given the ball back to your offense. Like you're now kind of in the same boat. You've given up the same amount of points, and now you put the pressure on your offense to maybe have to overcome a deficit because you've allowed them to hit you over the top a little bit more. Maybe it works, Mike. I don't know. But the point is he has not been stagnant for the last 3 weeks. You've tried to do things, and they're not working. And by the way, I heard you earlier, Davion Taylor looks like a linebacker who can make a tackle when the guy's right in front of him. He's still lost in coverage. I mean, go look at how many tight end yards were. I mean, he's an okay. But you were trying to compare like Schwartz's defense to this year's defense and say this defense is a lot better. Well, at corner, but not really in totality.
No, Taylor, you're right. He is raw and lost half the time out there. But I'm saying he's at least an athlete that can cover up for some of his mistakes that he makes because he can run. These guys they've had out there in the past, you give up a catch, they're out of place, and then they can't even make up for it because they couldn't run either.
Like a Nate Gary, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, you got Gary out there who you catch the ball, he couldn't tackle, and he couldn't catch you.
Right.
You know, Taylor's going to give you the catch because he can't cover, but at least he's fast enough to make up for the fact that he just lets you catch the ball right in front of him, you know?
Yeah, no. But I look at this defense and people look at this defense and think Jonathan Gannon's an idiot. I look at this defense and I say, this is what you get.
And I'm not suggesting that.
No,
he's
not
like,
you.
I'm
not you.
Oh, no, but I'm certainly being critical of him, yes. But I'm not suggesting that he needs to be fired or that he's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing. I would suggest he doesn't have the personnel that he wants.
Absolutely. I think, I look at this defense and I see what is it, 20 years or about, no, 10 years of not drafting safeties in the first 2 rounds. I see 20 years or whatever since you developed your own Pro Bowl corner and didn't have to go out and get an aging one. And then safety, same thing. With Jaquan Jarrett, Nate Allen were 2009, 2010. And honestly, Jaquan Jarrett stunk and Nate Allen was serviceable. He wasn't even that good. So Michael Lewis was the last Pro Bowl safety they drafted. That was 2003 or 2, right?
Let me ask you then.
It's 18 years, man.
Are there I'm saying, is his game plan suggesting that my safeties are a problem?
I think his game plans is very soft and very unaggressive. And that's the part I don't like. And I get it, but I also can't sit here and tell you if he played a little bit more aggressive, a little more up on these guys, that 30-year-old Rodney McLeod and 30-year-old Anthony Harris are going to sit there and do a really good job defending Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And I mean, they could barely stick with these tight ends that you never even heard of, right? I mean, the reality is it's like a pick your poison to me. And he has tried to do things differently. It's not working. And I think we always wait until the offseason to kill the roster and the decision makers, but they play as much part in this as the coaches do.
Right now, I mean, again, I said I'm not the guy. Fans, they just want to blitz. I mean, Jim Johnson has crushed every other defensive coordinator's ability to be a coordinator in this town. Right. They just want blitz, 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 blitz. They did blitz more yesterday. The blitzes didn't work. Now, they did work in the first half. They blitzed a lot in the first half, and they caused some havoc. Why didn't they do that in the second half?
You need me to tell you why? Did you lose a certain piece of personnel in the second half that might be your only good guy? That you just said it. Darius Slay put more on his shoulders. Well, when he's out on the sideline and you got Zach McPherson on, I was shocked. There was one play. I'm like, wow, they haven't tested Zach McPherson yet, right? And then I noticed he's playing about 10 to 12 yards off of it was not Allen. It was maybe Parham or no, Guyton. And if you remember, Herbert just immediately fires the ball to Guyton. And for whatever reason, that was one of his 6 incomplete. He just fired it wide. And I was like, I'll be damned. He misses the only opportunity he's going to take against McPherson. But that just shows you, like, they had no confidence. You got Andre Chachere out there. Chachere, yeah. You got Zach McPherson. You got TJ Edwards, who's really been a help in the run defense. But if you're asking him to play man, if you're going to play blitz and play more man, and now he's got to cover Austin Eckler one-on-one and cut. You're just asking for a bad matchup somewhere. It sucks, but that's the reality of being a bad team.
All right. Well, that at least paints a better picture to the people out there that would say, all right, why aren't you doing this? So if they blitz more, that's not helping them if you don't have Slay on the field, because they're going to find that guy and go right after him and say, McPherson, you make the play, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe there's some merit to the idea, just let them make, if they get beat, they get beat. But people say, like, I'd rather see that, but they're wrong, because then when the Eagles lose, no matter what, they get mad at it. It doesn't matter how they lose. They get mad for something else. And by the way, this Nick Sirianni, I give him a lot of credit. The offense the last 2 weeks, he's found something with the run game. How long do you think that's going to last, that he can run the ball? I heard you say it. You're right. How long do you think he's going to be able to run the ball 35 times a game? You think the Broncos are going to sit there and let him run 35 times a game in Denver? Heck no. So this whole idea that all these games now are winnable because the offense is bang, bang now? No. Someone's going to make the adjustment. And they're going to make the Eagles in a game or two, and then when they're not playing the worst run defense in the L or the worst team in the NFL, someone's going to challenge that offense a little bit more and see if they can do more than just run it up the gut. And then when it doesn't work, you're going to hear that Nick Sirianni's an idiot again.
Well, right. And you're right. And I said this earlier. You can't run 40 times a game and expect to win games. You might shorten the margin of error and make the games closer, for now. But that's not a sustainable blueprint. That's like the Broncos suggesting we're going to keep Tim Tebow and keep this playbook for him. And they couldn't do it. It was sustainable for 8 games, but you can't do that. So
absolutely.
What do you think though of the running game here? Because I think it's going to be interesting. With Sanders ready to return soon, you got Jordan Howard decision to make. Howard's been pretty good. You have 4 running backs if Sanders comes back. How do you divide the time? He already talked today. We just heard him say got a lot of mouths to feed. You can't find a way to get Watkins involved right now because you're running so much. Riggers apparently is completely out of the offense. I mean, it's a tough when he gets Sanders back, this is going to be real interesting.
It is. I think obviously the running game's been very effective and good. Again, against the worst team in the league and then the worst run defense in the league. But I also think the running game is kind of boring. Not like conceptual. I don't mean like it's not fun to watch. I mean, it is actually fun to watch them just dominate in the trenches. But they don't do anything Shanahan-esque or ultra sophisticated. They put 2, sometimes 3 tight ends on the line of scrimmage with the 5 offensive linemen, and they run the ball up the middle, right? Or sometimes they come out in shotgun and they run a draw. They run the ball up the middle. You don't see a whole lot of motion. You don't see a whole lot of misdirection. You don't see a whole lot of trapping. You don't see a ton of pulling, pin pull stuff, right? So that's why I say don't get so comfortable with the idea that the Eagles are just going to roll all over everybody with a running game here on out. Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive coordinators in the game. He's watching this tape and he's seeing the Eagles just basically line up and run the ball because their personnel is better. His personnel on defense is pretty good. You saw what they just did at Dallas. That might be a little bit of an overestimation of what they really are. But someone's going to challenge this offensive running game and makes Nick Sirianni be a little bit better, and we'll see if he can be better or more creative.
And then obviously, Hurts, he missed a couple throws yesterday. I don't know what if he's getting judged on that. Sirianni said, hey, he made plays that no one else is making. He only has to throw 17 times. Is the message, hey, we got to run to win, or is the message we don't have enough trust in our quarterback to keep asking him to do more? What's the fine line there?
Yeah, well, it's both. And it's interesting. I was very curious to see how the Eagles would come out in this game after what they did against the Lions. They come out right. In the first play they run was the under center look, right? There was under center, downhill, bam, Boston Scott got like 3 yards. The next 6 plays were all from the shotgun, which told me that Nick was trying to play it halfway, trying to get that run going, but he was also trying to go back to shotgun. He didn't want to be predictable. He didn't want to have to just do what he did against the Lions. He's trying to help the quarterback mature and grow and groom. But once it didn't work, he's like, forget. I think he even said, I think Evan Washburn said at halftime, Nick Sirianni said, hey, we're just going to do what we're going to do to win now. And that was just lining it up, 3 tight ends, power run, bam. And it helped. I mean, it did help Jalen Hurts be able to establish a more of a flow in the second half there. But like you're saying, you just can't do that in the NFL anymore. You can't play this way and expect to beat good teams all the time that way.
And the Chargers, I guess, would be the best, other than Dallas coming up. That Charger team's probably the best team you had left on your schedule. So if you play the way you did yesterday, is that sustainable to win? I don't know. You got Denver, New Orleans, the Giants, the Jets, Washington, Giants, Washington, Dallas. You have 8 games left. If you play the way you did yesterday, I don't know, can you win half of those games?
Half? Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, maybe. Absolutely. I imagine that, if you were a New York City sports talk guy and I was working for the New York Daily News or Post, you would say, hey, the Giants just beat the Raiders yesterday. Pretty good there. Yep. Then you look at the schedule and you see who they got. No, the Eagles. They should be able to beat the Eagles, right? I mean, They just beat the Raiders, killed the Eagles. So the Giants should be able to beat them twice. So the argument that we make here about making the playoffs or winning the winnable games is the same argument that's going on in Atlanta, in New York, in San Francisco, and
totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree with that. And that's why I say, well, you're in the playoff mix. Playoffs? You know how many Jim Mora memes I get sent to me? And I'm like, look, this isn't me saying I think that you're a Super Bowl contending team, but Moshe, the mentality of people don't even want to make the playoffs. They'd rather get this draft pick, this mythical draft pick, and then they'll complain that the guy making the pick they don't want. So there's no winning here. You know what I mean? It's like, here's the thing I would suggest too.
Mm-hmm.
They need a linebacker. They need a safety. You're not drafting a linebacker or a safety in the top 5. So what are you going to do with these mythical 3 picks inside the top 10, right?
Yeah. Well, I think yesterday showed you they could really use an elite pass rusher too, though. I mean,
right,
when
you're
play
hoping Miami gets you that pick.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you are going to play he is going to play cover 2. I mean, he's not going to just completely abandon that and never play it anymore. And when you do that and you're not going to blitz, you do need your front 4 to rush the passer well. They did it against the Lions fairly well. But again, you're playing a better team, a quarterback who's got a little bit of a better idea what he wants to do with the ball.
Yep.
And that didn't help them. But I also thought the D-line didn't really come to play. So that was not good.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line, you lose Graham, and that has been a factor. Obviously, they're hoping for more, but that's a situation where 1 week you get 6 sacks and 12 quarterback hits. This week you get no sacks and 1 quarterback hit. That you can't have that big of a discrepancy and drop off. You need more consistency up front if this is the way you're going to build your game plan.
You do. You absolutely need to hit a lot on your acquisitions this offseason. And you can't use one game at, oh, man, this show we really need a defensive. No, you need to look at this thing in totality. They need defensive personnel pretty much at every level.
Yeah, I mean, Barnett offsides, that play kills you again. I mean, you don't know what happens there. 3rd and 6, he goes offsides, 3rd and 1. They don't get the yard. They go for it on 4th, and there's your game right there. I mean, one play doesn't make it, but that's just a microcosm of what that guy has been this year.
Yeah, it's fun. I was thinking the other day how Ben Simmons and to some extent Carson Wentz have made it possible for a guy like Derek Barnett not to be the most hated athlete in the city when he probably would be if you didn't have those other 2 huge situations hovering over because Derek Barnett's consistent penalties at the worst times, and JJ Arcega-Whiteside, of course, not even being active and injured, just not being the 2nd-round pick that he was supposed to be. Ordinarily, and most times, would be like the number. It would be like, remember how when Nelson Aguilar after his first year, he was probably the athlete that most brought out people's anger in the city. I think those 2 guys are catching a break right now.
Interestingly enough, Philadelphia 3-6. They'll play Denver next week. Denver, who absolutely blew the doors off Dallas yesterday. I don't know. Did they show a weakness in Dallas? Was there a blueprint there for Dallas?
Did you watch any of the game?
I watched a lot, almost all of it.
Okay. I only watched it in snippets. I didn't sit down and watch the whole game, but I saw the early 4th downs that they went for it on where they passed. I thought Dak looked like he was up on his toes a lot with the ball in his hand. Like his calf might have still been an issue. He just did not, to me, look spry enough to make the plays that he normally would make. And I think that was a big factor situationally for them.
Yeah, that and I would say, and look, I still think Dallas is very good. They're not in danger of losing this division, but just bigger picture, I think people can realize that they might be able to run the ball. I think a lot of these teams are always behind on them. They'll try to run, but if you go toe-to-toe with them from the get-go, I don't think they stop the run. I think Van Der Esch is not the same player that he was. And Diggs, he has all those interceptions, but I think he takes a lot of chances because of those interceptions. He's also allowed
the most air yards in the league as well. So,
he gives up 18.5 yards per catch. And I think teams are starting to challenge him a little bit more because he takes a lot of chances, and he's starting to get beat a little bit more.
Yeah, he feels like a poor man's Asante Samuel.
Asante Samuel, right? I was saying the same thing. My God, I said this to my buddy the other day. I was like, this guy's like Asante Samuel, just jumping on everything, doesn't tackle a lick. And as good as Parsons is, he's amazing. Sometimes he's so over-aggressive.
Yeah, Ernie Sims had that issue, right? I mean, I'm not trying to compare Ernie Sims because he was clearly not as good as Michael Parsons is going to be. But Ernie Sims was so fast and so athletic. And so much so that people would be like, I'm just going to throw a screen to his side because he's going to literally over pursue the target by like 10 yards, right?
Jeff Mosher, the Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning with reaction to the Eagles' loss to the Chargers and what could be next for them. They take on Denver. We'll have coverage of that when Jeff returns on Wednesday's edition of Football at 4. All right, Jeff Mosher.
All right, buddy, this was fun. Talk to you Wednesday.
Man. As always, Andrew's here tomorrow. Mosher's back on Wednesday. And of course, Adam will be here on Friday's show. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. The latest on Ben Simmons in 15 minutes. Paul Hudrick will be here. Casey Joyner at 5. One thought every game. So many crazy things happen. I'll look at what happened yesterday that really stood out. More on the Sports Bash coming up. 431 Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. So I went to the big STP show Saturday night. Was over at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City there, Josh. So I was telling you on Thursday, so the new singer, Jeff Goot is his name, right?
Goot.
Jeff Goot. I would say he was all right. I wasn't like, this guy sucks, but he wasn't Scott Weiland. Let's put it that way.
Well, we're kind of in the age right now, are we not? Where it's like there's a lot of these bands who are doing like these, like run it back tours.
Well, I mean, Scott Weiland's obviously, Scott Weiland's not here anymore.
Right. Well, there's a lot of them who aren't here anymore.
Right. So I get it. Like, you don't just close shop and end your business because, I mean, that's their business. They're, the two brothers who were the guitar players, the Dean and Robert. I'm their name. Geez. But they don't just say we don't have a job anymore.
Right.
Like, they were a big part of the band too. So I get it. I'm not ripping them. The concert was fun. They played all the hits. They played all like, if you went to that concert, you knew every song. They played 2 new songs. They do have a new album out. DeLeo. As soon as you said D, I was like, DeLeo. Robert and Dean. Right. So the band is the same. They just need a singer.
Right.
So the guy, Jeff Goot, he looks a little bit like Weiland. He just doesn't have the stage presence. And you just can't help but think, I'm watching a cover band play STP songs, even though they got the rest of the band. That's how good Weiland was as a front man. That's the problem. Weiland was so good as the front man that when this new guy comes in as the front man, you can't emulate Weiland. You just can't do it. Like Bennington, when he was doing the lead for STP for a couple of years there, he was pretty good. I went back and watched him.
He's also got a different sound.
He does, but he did sound similar to Weiland, but he did have a better stage presence than Goot did.
Now, part of that is also because that, Bennington, all those years working with Linkin Park.
Right. You could tell that he was the lead singer of a major band. Goot, he was with like Dry Cell, which he probably played, here's the thing I'll take from this concert, okay? They're playing, and look, if you go back and just Google Stone Temple Pilots live, you will see STP with Scott Weiland playing in front of about 100,000 people.
Right.
At their height. They played in front of about 1,500 people the other night, to which I looked around to my girlfriend and her friend and my friend, and I said, hey, the only thing I took out of this concert is 2 things. 1, this guy's not nearly as good as Scott Weiland, which isn't a knock on him. I'm not trying to rip him. But 2, I look pretty damn good for my age, considering the people that were in that room that night. I said, babe, look around this room right now, and then you tell me that I didn't age well. I mean, I said, look, I was 15 years old or so when Stone Temple Pilots released Core.
Right.
We're talking about 1993. I was probably, 15 years old? So everybody in that room, there's very few people that I imagine are much younger than 40 in that room.
Right.
Everyone's
probably between 40 and 60.
Right. I said, so everybody's between like 40 and 60 because like the 60-year-olds were like in their 30s.
Right.
And that to them was kind of cool, I'm imagining, when that came out. Now they're 60. I was 15, so I'm 45 almost now. I looked around. I said, hey, look, man, I don't look so bad for 40 years old next to some of the jamokes in this room tonight.
Well, it's like, when, so for example, Frank Close and I, who covers the Phillies, we've chatted about Linkin Park.
He's a Linkin Park guy.
Right. And I grew up.
I was not a big Linkin Park guy. That's why Bennington, for me, as the front man,
was a little surprising for you.
It just didn't seem like it fit. That's all.
And it really didn't. But at the same time, like, I grew up and I enjoyed Linkin Park.
But I did go back and watch him.
Right.
If you Google STP with Chester Bennington, there is some stuff that he did.
No,
he wasn't bad. I'll give it to him. He wasn't bad.
But my point about Linkin Park is, for people in like my age group, for example, or Frank's, because me and Frank are close in age, right? And we've talked about the fact that it's like, Linkin Park after a certain point wasn't Linkin Park anymore. And it's like, it would be hard to go to a concert with Linkin Park now now that Chester isn't there anymore. It's just not the same. It's like that guy who's the lead singer for Journey.
Right.
Like,
I said that, like Journey, you
it's
go and you see
Arnell Pineda. I think it
Arnell,
is.
right? It's just like
the guy sounds like him, but he's not him.
I will say this. I was not a huge STP fan. I liked their music, but it wasn't like one of my favorites.
Wasn't your go-to.
My buddy really wanted to go. No, I had a good time. Like I knew he played, I think they played 17 songs.
So it was a fun show.
And I probably knew 13 of them.
So it was fun, though.
I had a good time. Yeah.
Nice.
I think my girlfriend, she knew like 5 or 6 songs. His wife, she hated it. But I mean, I felt like I was 15 again for an hour and a half.
Sure.
It was a quick show, 17 songs in, out. So good time.
Okay, so at least your night wasn't like you're drained. Yeah, you had a good time.
No, but I wonder if anybody listening in the listening audience, who else was at that show Saturday night and felt the same way, that the guy's good. He just felt he feels kind of like cover bandish. He's good, but he's not. I said, no one's going to be Scott Weiland. That's the problem you have. When you're following Weiland, he of the 90s grudge bands, he may have been the best frontman.
Not the Cobain?
Best. I didn't say the best voice or the best frontman. Yeah, he was better than Cobain.
So
as the guy, as a stage presence, energy.
Okay.
That guy moved all over the place. He
Gotcha.
looked like a rock. He had the leopard skin vest. He was wearing a boa.
Yeah, drenched in sweat halfway through the show.
Weiland was great. Jeff Goot, you did a nice job, but you're not Scott Weiland. And that's not a knock. I'm not knocking that guy. If you went to the show, let me know. 609-403-0973. Hey, a rival team is engaged in talks about Ben Simmons. We got the details with Paul Hudrick next. All right, 444 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers. We've got new news on Ben Simmons. We'll get that to you in just a second. For more, go to 973ESPN.com. Paul Hudrick joins us now to take a look at the Sixers, who are back in action tonight, but very short-handed. They might be short-handed for a while now, Paul. We got a lot of Sixers news to dive into, but they keep winning, man. I don't know how they keep doing it. They keep figuring out a way. But they beat the Bulls for their 5th straight. We just lost Paul. He just kind of vanished on me there. But the new news on Ben Simmons, for those of you who are wondering what we're talking about, is apparently a rival team, that being the Boston Celtics, are engaging in conversations with the 76ers. This according to Shams at The Athletic. The Celtics have engaged in conversations with the Sixers revolving around Ben Simmons. That, according to Shams. And, of course, Boston is the team that kind of figured out a way to stop Ben Simmons a couple of years ago, and now they're the team that might be interested in him. The Celtics have engaged in conversations with the Sixers regarding Ben Simmons. Talks have been fluid, no traction as of yet. Sources say any potential deal with the Sixers would have to include Jaylen Brown. There's Paul Hudrick. So these are some interesting reports here from a very credible source.
For sure. You hear the name Jaylen Brown. I think that excites an awful lot of Sixers fans to hear that name because he's one hell of a basketball player and would be a pretty seamless fit on this team. I mean, I guess not. I shouldn't say seamless because, in that instance, you likely would still have to start Tyrese Maxey, which I know, again, a lot of fans would be very happy about, but he is still a 21-year-old second-year guy. So if you were to get a Jaylen Brown, you would have to continue with Tyrese Maxey as your starting point guard. That might work out very well, but it is a little risky. With that said, getting a player like that for Ben Simmons would be phenomenal. And with that said, for me, if I'm the Boston Celtics, that's not a deal I would personally make unless they're just really in dire straits about their situation, because obviously they're not off to a great start. There's been apparently a little friction in their locker room, but Jaylen Brown to me has always come across as a guy that's excellent for a locker room, a very good person who does a lot of really good things off the court as well as on it. So yeah, I mean, if I'm a Sixers fan, sign me up yesterday for that trade, but I'm struggling to see how that would benefit the Celtics personally.
Right. I mean, obviously, there's, we don't know if this is imminent. It doesn't know. Obviously, hey, we're interested. It says talks would revolve around Brown. Not that the Celtics are offering Brown. I'm imagining that that's who the Sixers would ask for in a deal, or is that salaries that match up?
Yeah, I mean, that it's the most, if you're looking at it from the Sixers perspective, that's the guy you'd want. I mean, I'm not interested in, I don't know, Romeo Langford and a bunch of picks. Like, that doesn't really too much for me if I'm the Sixers, or, I think Marcus Smart, I'm not sure his deal because he did sign an extension. I'm not sure when that would kind of kick into effect, but even that, like Marcus Smart for a bunch of picks, I'm not sure that really does anything for me either. So that's the most logical guy, because they're not going to give you Tatum. No way in hell that's happening. But really, I don't see the realistic path for Brown either. But that's what I think it is, Mike. I think if you're the Celtics, sure. If you're Brad Stevens, why not pick up the phone and see where everything is? And I also know that executives within the Celtics organization know Daryl Morey, know Doc Rivers. So that could be a very fluid thing where those guys kind of talk all the time. And of course, if the Celtics bring up Ben Simmons, the first name out of Daryl Morey's mouth is going to be Jaylen Brown. With that said, again, it's these talks, I think, happen a lot more than maybe we think or realize, and they don't maybe get reported on as frequently. But with this one out there, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for the Sixers to ask for that. And it also makes some sense from the Celtics standpoint to do some due diligence and to see what it would take to get Ben Simmons there.
Now, I would imagine that the answer to this question is pretty obvious, but I'll ask you. Report that Simmons has told the Sixers the name of his professional health professionals. He didn't give them any information on what's being talked about, which is his prerogative, but it sounds like this would be his way to try to not get fined.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much gray area and there's so much we don't know. I mean, from what I've been told and people I've talked to, and it kind of touches on what Woj touched on last week, is it's not necessarily that they do believe that Ben Simmons has a mental health situation. There is something going on there. It's not that they're trying to discredit that in any way. It's more so that they're not sure that he is proceeding in good faith to get back on the court as a part of the Philadelphia 76ers. And that's not just this. That's also, he's only doing individual workouts. He's refusing to do anything beyond that. He doesn't want to do film sessions when that's a possibility for him to do. He doesn't do the mandated strength and conditioning work. All he wants to do is individual work. So I think if you're looking at it from the Sixers perspective, they're not sure he's doing this all in good faith to return to the court. If you're looking at it from Ben Simmons' perspective, sure, he does not have to reveal, the full extent of what he's doing. And that, like you said, that's his prerogative. That's his right as a worker, and, as someone who works for someone. You're not going to get their whole mental health history and what exactly is going on. But I think the Sixers just feel like they are in the dark completely on everything to do with Ben Simmons. And it seems like Ben Simmons likes it that way. So it's a lack of trust, Mike. I mean, that's the bottom line. I think neither side trusts the other. And I think that's been apparent since the end of Game 7. That's been an obvious thing.
Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers, with us here at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. No Joel Embiid, and possibly for longer. I don't know his status, but he failed. Obviously, he's in the protocol. Could be up to 10 days. He has to test negative twice within 48 hours. Is that what it is?
I believe it's 24 hours, but I could be mistaken.
2 in 24 hours. Okay, yes. So they're going to be without Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle for a stretch of games potentially here, including Knicks tonight, Bucks tomorrow. And if they're out for an extended period of time, obviously, this whole they're not missing any games. They're not going to do what they did last year. Although last year did they play a game with like 8 guys or something like that?
They sure. I think it was technically 7 because Mike Scott just dressed, so they didn't have to forfeit. But
right,
yeah, they only played 7 guys.
Right. So obviously, for them to get to where they are, 8-2, through all the Ben Simmons stuff, no Harris and no Thybulle, and now potentially no Embiid. I mean, it shows the depth of this team, but that is going to be challenged the next 2 nights.
Oh, 100%. And not only that, Mike, you have a 6-game road trip coming up. So for me, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's hard for me to envision Joel Embiid, being part of really any of that road trip. Really, I mean, if he's got to be out, and there are already reports that he is experiencing, that he tested positive, is experiencing symptoms in a breakthrough case because he is vaccinated. If he's out, 10 days, they're not going to rush him back to fly him out to the West Coast to play any games. So I would not be surprised if he misses that entire trip. Now, maybe they get Tobias Harris back. I know that, from when we talked to Dr. Rivers, he was also experiencing symptoms. It was not a breeze for him. Like he was feeling it a little bit. So it's going to be a really difficult situation. As you mentioned, they've weathered a lot of storms, and it's been a credit to them and how well they've done it. But this one, losing Joel Embiid for kind of an unforeseen amount of time, like that one really hurts. And, this Knicks game, it's still winnable tonight. I feel like the Knicks are coming off a back-to-back. They might not have either of their centers. I know Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson were both questionable. So tonight is a game they could win. Tomorrow night against Milwaukee in the second half of a back-to-back, that's tough sledding, man. That's going to be a really difficult game to try to pull out. And to your point, Thursday they have Toronto, which is no slouch. Like, the schedule gets tougher from a logistical standpoint, but it also gets tougher from a opponent standpoint. They play some good teams. So it's going to be, if they can just tread water for the next couple weeks here, that'll be huge.
Real quick, I got about a minute. Just on the Jaylen Brown thing, is he a guy that can get a bucket late? Like, are you adding a player who can score 25, but it's when he scores the 25?
Sure. He's not, if you're going to compare him, like, he's not Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's the guy you would want, and the Celtics have done that. Like, that's the guy you want with the ball in his hands to close out a game. With that said, I feel better about the ball in Jaylen Brown's hands than I do on anyone on the Sixers right now, including Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid gets the ball in the post. That's easy to trap. It's really hard to trap a guy like Jaylen Brown, who's so explosive and can hit he can score on all 3 levels of the court. You give that guy a decent ball screen, he's probably going to find at least an okay shot for you. So is he perfect in that regard? No, but he's better than anything they've got right now.
He's Paul Hudrick. Check out his work over at libertyballers.com, on Twitter at Paul Hudrick. And he was kind enough to join us here on Inside the Sixers for Monday. Hey, Paul, take care, man.
You as well, Mike. Thanks, man.
All right, Sixers back in action. They take on the Knicks tonight. You can hear the game live on 97.3 ESPN. Then we'll take you to Monday Night Football. Tomorrow night, the Sixers and the Bucks, and you can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. Likely no Joel Embiid in both of the games tonight and tomorrow. Not ideal. I don't even know who. I guess Drummond. You're going to get Drummond games. I mean, yeah, Drummond, and then I'm trying to think of who the backups might be. Here we go. All right, good luck. There you go. 609-573-3776. Looking for the first three in. If you're in, you're registered. Eagles club box seats, Sixers, Flyers, and other great tickets from all over South Jersey. 99 bottles, November 24th at Vagabond Kitchen and Tap House. Good luck. We'll see you there. All right, final hour of the show here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. 1 hour left to go. What a week 9 we had. I mean, bizarro stuff happened in the week 9 games that we will take a look at with one thought on every game, brought to you by Cape Regional Health System. For a healthier life, call 609-463-CAPE. And Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer. He is here with one thought on every game right now here on the Sports Bash, plus a little deeper look at what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday, Casey, as they lose 27-24, and everybody loves to play the blame game. Who are we pointing the finger at today?
Jonathan Ganna. I don't think there's anybody else you can blame it on. I do an article every Monday morning for the Athletic regarding it's one question for every team from a fantasy perspective, but it has a lot of NFL coverage in it as well. Here's the thing. Check this out. Since week 6, the Eagles play that 2-eye coverage. They're only facing 8 vertical passes per game. That ranks tied for 3rd lowest, but they've allowed an 88.7% completion rates on short throws in that span. They are 28th in short pass yards per attempt and 31st in short yards pass allowed, which means they're sitting back so much and saying, fine, we're not going to let you throw deep. A team's like, okay, you're going to keep letting us go underneath. You let us go underneath. We're going to complete nearly 90% of our passes. And that's over, I mean, from week 6, that's a multi-game span. It was terrible yesterday, almost 10 yards per attempt on just a bunch of dink and dunk throws for the most part. You got to do something better because, I mean, that's just – if you're going to allow that kind of passing yardage and short passes, you just cash your check. You're going home.
Casey, it's historically bad. They've given up 5 different quarterbacks over 80%. They're giving up 75.5% on the season. So forget the fact that it's these good quarterbacks. Every quarterback, what adjustments can John Gannon make? Is this a coaching problem or a personnel problem?
Looking at the True Media statistics right now and looking at yesterday's game, when the Eagles blitzed Justin Herbert, remember what he did yesterday? 32 of 38 for 300 and almost 60 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Okay, that's huge. When they blitzed him, he's 9 of 12, only 75 yards, 6.3 yards per attempt. Now, mind you, he got 2 touchdowns there, so it's probably once they got really close to the goal on this, we got to go ahead and blitz. It's like, well, you're allowing 6.3 yards per attempt when you blitz, and you're allowing nearly 10 yards per attempt total, so you're going to be allowing over 10 yards per attempt when you don't. I keep coming back to, I mean, let's think of Jim Johnson. Let's think of Wade Phillips. They always said, Wade Phillips have said, I rush 3. If I can't get a pass rush of 3, I'm going to go 4. If I can't get it at 4, I'll go 5. Can't go 5, I'll go 6. I'll keep sending more people until I get a pass rush, because I know if I don't get a pass rush, our defense is going to get crushed. And that's exactly what's happening to the Eagles right now. They're not getting a pass rush on a consistent basis. And if you get a blitz, you better blitz, because this ain't working.
No, it's not. And obviously, I mean, they lost Slay at some point. They blitzed more in the first half. I think they said they blitzed on 30% of the snaps. That was Zach Berman from The Athletic, who said they blitzed on 30% of the snaps in the first half. Just some success. And you wonder, when they lost Slay, is that when the game plan kind of went haywire?
Probably, because, I mean, you're going to have to play man coverage, but you have a week to think about this, that yeah, you might lose somebody to an injury and things, and what are you going to do? And if you lose one player and you say, well, we had a blitzing game plan and we lost one player, so we're just going to throw that game plan out, then you don't have a right game plan. You better have a game plan that allows you to absorb some sort of an injury, and I know Max got hurt too, so that's part of it. But you still have to be able, if you get a blitz from a side, if you've got to do, you got to bring some other form of pressure, you've got to do something to keep getting a pass rush, because okay, fine. Well, we've lost our players in coverage, so we're going to sit back and play and let them complete passes underneath. Okay, they're going to get nearly 10 yards per attempt. You have to change it. And again, if it worked early on and it worked before those guys went out, try it again, because until they show that they can stop your fastball, you got to keep bringing your fastball, and you don't let them get out of bringing your fastball just because you had an injury.
Let me flip over to the other side, because we have been very critical of Nick Sirianni and his game plan. It wasn't some outside of the box game plan. He went old school and said, hey, it worked last week. Let me try it again. And it worked again. He had an offensive game plan that was, they could have won the game with that game plan.
They could have. If the bad thing is that when you have that, but the good thing is when you have that kind of a game plan and you're getting 176 yards on the ground, and doing it with just straight power running, which is the way teams have done it against the Chargers. The Chargers sit back and they play that shell, and teams, instead of throwing underneath them, they just go ahead and run it up the gut and say, well, fine, we'll do midline all game. We'll go ahead and do power. We'll do counter. But basically, all the Eagles were doing is just variations of inside zone. And that's just vertical blocking, just push the guys off the ball. And they did it. And that's what they did against the Lions. They had actually more creativity against the Lions, but they didn't need creativity yesterday because it was working. They didn't have to worry about the perimeters. They would just pound them up the gut. So that's great. That should protect your defense. And that's the thing. If your offense is rushing the ball that well, and you get 2 fourth down stops, and including one at the goal line, if you get that, you ought to be able to have an advantage to start playing to win. Because if you can run the ball that well, you show to be more aggressive on your side of the ball. And again, it just they've got the game plan there, and the offense is now doing what it should do. But you got to get that defense fixed because they all were complementary.
Well, I guess the question moving forward is, I mean, is that a sustainable path to victory every week?
If you can run the ball that well, sure. If I mean, that should be something. If I'm the Eagles, I mean, think about it. Sanders could be back, another couple weeks. You could have Sanders, Howard, Scott, and you've got Hurts being able to run the ball both on plan and on scrambles. And Gainwell getting goal line carries. You would think, why is Gainwell getting the goal line carries? He's supposed to be the pass catching back, but of course he scored the touchdown. So you've got that much talent in your backfield. And again, as I wrote about for the Inquirer last week, they've got a lot of creativity in their running game built in if they want to use it. Didn't have to do it yesterday, but they've got that built in there. And we've seen what Hurts can do off of that, the things he could do passing wise. So it's like they have problems with the special teams this year. They seem to be getting those mostly fixed. They had problems in their offense where they were just one dimensional. Now they've shown they could do it in 2 dimensions. So they got 2 of the 3 going in the right direction. So I still like where they're at, but you got to get the defense fixed.
Hey, Smith had a good game yesterday, so I'm not knocking him at all, but I'm just wondering, can they get him even more involved? Like off the run game, can you get Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert? Those are 2 weapons that most teams in this league would love to game plan around. So off of all these runs, can they use that to get more from those 2 weapons?
They should have. They had that one play to Goddard where it was just slightly overthrown and he kind of bobbled it and would have been like a 30 or 40 yard gain had he caught it. So yeah, you do want to get him more involved. And as far as Smith goes, because Smith is he can be a run after the catch guy. I think the Eagles, and this is just based off of a couple observations from yesterday, I think that they have multiple ways they want to use him, and they would kind of do well to decide on one and like emphasize that one. Like if you're either going to be a run after catch guy or a vertical threat, don't try and make him both. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to incorporate some of the other parts in, but if you get him to master one before you try and get him to master both. And I'd like to see it from that perspective. But having said that, again, Goddard nearly had the very big catch, and Smith did score a touchdown. So they are finding ways to get them incorporated in there. I'm watching Sirianni and seeing what they're doing and saying, okay, getting a comfort level for what he's getting more comfortable with what he can do on offense. I keep coming back to it, but they're just not doing problem solving in defense. You see them doing problem solving in offense. They've got something that's not working. Give me a week or 2. I'll figure out what it's going to take to make that work. But on defense, they don't have a solution to the problem, and they have enough talent to play better than that.
Would you say, Casey Joyner's with me from The Athletic, would you say the Eagles have found an identity on offense, whether they stick with it or not, but if they found an identity?
Yes, I think that they have. It depends on if the coach will stick with it, because if they're power running and thing is, look, you power run and you get into a shootout contest, you power run, you're supposed to be avoiding shootout contests. So that's not the power run's problem. So I just hope that management or somebody higher up doesn't tell him, hey, we lost yesterday in a shootout and your running game isn't working. You need to get into a vertical passing. You need to go more dink and dunk and throwing the ball more, because that's not the answer to the problem, because then you're just inviting more shootouts, and you need to be doing everything you can to protect this defense. So I think they have found an identity and what works for them. And the thing is, as this power run game keeps working, it is, and we're seeing it already, we're going to see more of it if they keep at it. It's going to open up things in the passing game, and you're going to be more successful in the passing game. You can be, at least.
We hope.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, no one's asking. I'm not. You don't have to run 40 times, but if you are showing a propensity to do it, that opens up other things for you. Now, Hurts only threw 17 times yesterday. He missed 2 key throws, Casey. Where are you on Hurts?
He's a running. I look at it, I keep wondering why they don't build a Baltimore Ravens style game plan for him. and say, okay, he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not as talented as Jackson running the ball. He's a different kind of runner. Jackson's more of an open field guy, and Hurts has got more of a zone read keeper and kind of, I would say, a power back, but he'd be more of a power back, and Jackson more of a breakaway back if you put him in the backfield. But I wonder why they don't go to that more of that kind of game plan, why they don't go for the Greg Roman approach and say, look, let's really go heavy on this running thing, and then we'll do our vertical passing off of it. So I don't like to judge him based on if you're just going to make him a drop back quarterback and going to put him in that kind of offense, because that's not what his skill set is. I think if the Eagles adapt and adjust and say that's what we're going to do. And look, the Ravens have one of the best offenses in the league. If you look over the past few years, it's not as if they're running a ball and just keep, not we don't score any points. Oh, yeah, they do. They're an explosive offense. So I think if they'll go in that direction, I'm sold on the idea that he could be an NFL quarterback because he does a lot of things well. You just got to tailor the offense to his skills.
All right, Eagles lose to the Chargers, fall to 3-6, and they'll play Denver this week, and you can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. Casey Joyner will be back on Friday with one thought on every game for Week 10, but let's look back at what happened in Week number 9. What a wild week it was, including the Battle of Ohio, which wasn't much of a battle at all. It was all Cleveland as they crushed Cincinnati on the road, 41-16.
Yeah, Cincinnati. Cleveland came in there kind of banged up, and Cincinnati's just it's not a good sign for them if you're going to play that kind of contest at home, and you've got a lot of advantages that they had. So I wonder if the Bengals are just starting to wear down a bit as when I get a sense of it. But it also shows that the Browns have proven over the past 2 years, this year and last year, that they're very resilient, and they've built the kind of game plan that they can absorb a lot of these injuries. So I think they know who they are as a team more than Cincinnati does.
One thought every game. What happened to the Cowboys? Denver runs all over them. Blueprint?
Yeah, blueprint. The Cowboys don't handle that kind of power running well, and I think that their offensive injuries are catching up. CeeDee Lamb was banged up. Prescott, even though he came in with no injury designation, he didn't look quite as good. So I think the Cowboys need to get back to stop trying to be a pass-happy team and keep talking about here. I think they need to lean on Elliott and Pollard more. And that defense, though, that run defense was a concern yesterday because they've been playing pretty well, and they didn't play well yesterday at all.
One thought every game. The worst two teams in the league had a nice battle, 17-9 Miami, which ruins that Eagle draft pick.
It does, and I wrote about this for The Athletic. I'm just shocked at what happened to Tyrod Taylor, but you look at what caused his was incompletions because he was coming into the game. You thought, okay, they played really well with him earlier in the year. They've got a lot, but he looked very rusty. His incompletions were for a variety of reasons, like a ton of them were for inaccurate passes, pass rush, wide receiver mistakes. He just looked out of sync, and the line wasn't good. I think you give him a week off like they're going to have next week, he'll be fine in a couple weeks, but it showed Miami, hey, they're a well-coached team, and if you don't play well against them, this is what can happen.
Atlanta goes on the road. They upset the Saints 27-25. Atlanta is the 7th seed right now.
Yeah. I said coming into the year that I thought there was a path for Arthur Smith to be coach of the year just because he was going to take over a team that had some talent. And if you looked at his schedule, you could okay, I can get this to 9 wins if they play a certain way. They're playing that way now. And Atlanta, though, another blown lead. I mean, you get the Saints. The Atlanta had a blown lead, then came back from it. So I got to give them credit for that.
All right, they are the 7th seed right now, 4-4. New England, they go on the road. They beat up on Carolina, who's now the 8th seed. They fall to 4-5. Sam Darnold, all sorts of problems.
Sam Darnold, when he came out of college, I figured this guy is a solid quarterback and he's going to be a upper half of the league quarterback. And I can't figure out what it is. And mind you, the Jets asked the same question and Carolina asked the same question because the talent's there and he's got talent around him. But I don't think that I get a sense sometimes he just doesn't want to be an NFL quarterback. I guess it might be the easiest thing to say because he is playing so badly right now. They almost have to go to PJ Walker.
Let's go to Vegas, who goes on the road. They lose to the Giants. The G-Men get a win, 23-16, and I guess at 3-6, they feel they're in there, and they're starting to get healthy.
That's the big thing. They're getting healthy. And mind you, Tony didn't play that well, but they're going to have Tony. They're going to have Shepard. They're going to have Golladay. They got Ingram. If they get Barkley back, they've got Booker as their back. And mind you, Daniel Jones early in the year, wrote about this in an Athletic article. In weeks 1 through 4, he was one of the most vertically inclined quarterbacks in the league as far as percentage of passes deep downfield. And during their injury stretch they've had of late, they've been one of the least aggressive teams on those passes. So as they get healthy, it's going to change the dynamic of who they are on offense. The Giants are going to be a more dangerous team down the stretch.
One thought every game. Buffalo, what happened? They went on the road to Jacksonville. Neither team played very well. It was the Josh Allen show, but the wrong Josh Allen.
Yeah, it was. I am at a loss how to explain that because Buffalo had gone up against some bad teams this year and they destroyed them. But this is one of those games where I think they just did not take Jacksonville seriously and they didn't play what, mind you, Jacksonville played terribly in offense. Of course, you'd expect that, but I think the Buffalo offense played quite poorly. I think they missed Dawson Knox. He added something to their offense that Sweeney just hasn't given them. Stephon Diggs, I wrote about in the article today, that he's not their top vertical receiver. There's a number of things in their offense they're not doing. So I think it's a variety of factors. I just also think that they just didn't take Jacksonville seriously. And when that happens, this can happen sometimes.
All right. One thought every game. Minnesota back and forth. Baltimore, they go to overtime. Baltimore wins it 34-31. That was a fun game to watch. They actually switched off the Cowboy game here and sent us there, thank God.
Yeah, it was a fun game. It says something from Minnesota, though, is that their whole thing is we don't want to get in a shootout contest because if we do, we've got to trust Cousins. We don't want him to throw the ball any more than we absolutely have to. And Baltimore's offense, even though what it is, they do two things. They pound the ball very well and they go vertical. And those are the two things they concentrate. Dink and dunk passes, yeah, they're not worried too much about that. But it allows them to get in these kind of shootout contests, even though they're a power running team. And Minnesota couldn't stop them in the end. And Minnesota's offense, as good as it is, it's got some weaknesses. So I think that it's a big concern for the Vikings, and kudos to Baltimore.
One thought every game. We saw Jordan Love get me Aaron Rodgers back on the horn quickly, right? Kansas City, man, they are still struggling, but they win 13-7.
You know it's bad when the Packers were thinking, boy, we wish we did start a Blake Bortles yesterday. I mean, it's bad. You would think that would be an upgrade. He's horrible. I mean, look at that. It's abysmal. And you gotta wonder, I mean, he's had a year and a half, and I know it's Kansas City, but they're a bad defense. And look, nobody expected Jordan Love to go out there and put up a 400-yard game or something of that nature. Nobody expected him to be Mike White. I mean, nobody expected him to do that. They expect him just to be able to do whatever he could do, but that he couldn't get anything done. And mind you, they had Adams was there, but Valdez Scantling, Cobb, they had all the receivers. They had everybody there that they needed, except for Tunning, who was out, obviously. But they had everybody else there in the power running game, and he can't do that well. It speaks very badly for them, and it might give Rodgers leverage or what he wants to get out of backers.
One thought every game. Wow, Arizona on the road. No Kyler Murray, no problem. San Francisco, they got problems. They lose 31-17 at home. And we're starting to hear that little birdie about the coach out there.
Yeah, it's tough because he is a good coach. I think he does a very good job, but if you don't put up enough wins, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. It says something for Arizona because once Murray and Hopkins are going to make, and that's AJ Green too. AJ Green's not been a great receiver, but he's been like their number 2 receiver out there. So you're missing your top 2 receivers and your quarterback is out, and you're on the road against a talented divisional opponent who's getting healthy again. And 31-17, that didn't describe what that game was. They dominated that contest. It speaks very badly for the 49ers, and if they don't, and I think if they don't win another 4 or 5 games by the end of the year, they'll make the playoffs. But if they don't win another 4 or 5 games by the end of the year, I think it could be in for Shanahan.
Ooh, all right. Sunday Night Football, Tennessee, all over the Rams. All right, turn back the clock. We had a touchdown from Adrian Peterson, but he wasn't really the story. It was the fact that Tennessee dominated the game. I actually loved Tennessee last night. You're giving the Titans 7.5. What kind of disrespect was that, for God's sakes? I love that last night. I was all over the Titans. They didn't win the game. They punched the Rams in the mouth, in the gut, and then kicked them and said, get out of my way.
Without Derrick Henry. I've said this 1,000 times on the show, and I'll say it till the day I die. Power football works. It always works. It's worked. And you can look at any era of the NFL going back to the 1920s and the start of the league through today. If you are effective at power football, and power football is you can power run the ball. Of course, you can throw vertical and things out, but you can power run the football. And on defense, you can stop the power running game. If you can do those two things, you're going to win a whole lot of games. And Tennessee's entire game plan, they've got a linebacker for their head coach. I mean, of course, that's who they are. Their entire game plan is built around being that, and their whole mindset is that way. And I think the Rams sometimes are a little too pass happy and a little too big play happy for their own good, and it cost them last night.
One thought every game. Tonight we got Bears and Pittsburgh. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we felt that Pittsburgh was in play for maybe one of the worst teams in the league. They've turned some things around. The Bears got a little bit of mojo. They didn't win, but they felt like they turned the corner a bit offensively. So this one's got some intrigue tonight.
It does. And the Steelers finally, they don't have a great running game, but they have a solid running game. And Najee Harris, he's on track to be the offensive rookie of the year. Everybody's thinking Jamar Chase is going to do it. Chase didn't look very good yesterday, and Najee just keeps getting 20 carries a game. With Derrick Henry out, he may lead the league in scrimmage yards. So he is that good. He's that central to the offense. Pat Freiermuth, by the way, name to keep in mind, former Penn State tight end. He's doing very well. I
need him to have a big night tonight in fantasy.
Yeah, he might. He's third in the league.
9 points. Can I get 9?
Yeah. PPR?
PPR, I'm down by 8. I need 9.
He's got 5.5 catches per game out of the past 3 weeks, tied for third in the league. I think he does that again tonight. I think it's 5 to 6 catches. I think you're going to be just fine. Between that and everything else they have
I dropped Ingram to pick him up because I felt it. And then, of course, you know how many points Ingram got me?
Yeah.
9.
Yeah. I think it'd be solid.
Yeah. Well, Ingram got 9. I would have won by 1 point and the game would be over. Now I need 9 tonight. Oh, boy.
I think you'll get it. And they've got, with what they're getting out of him, and they still have Claypool, and they still have Washington. They still have other players in their passing game who are good. And Ben only has to hit a few passes because their defense is playing that well. And the Bears' pass blocking is just atrocious. And I don't think that they haven't thrown for 200 yards once this year. I don't think they'll do it again. I like the Steelers to win and to easily cover. So
wow. Okay. So that's one thought on every game. What was your one thought on the weekend? What was the one takeaway?
It's really difficult this year to I had a formula for picking games over the years, and there has a few elements to it. And this year is throwing those elements completely out of whack. Home teams aren't winning when they should. Upsets are happening when they shouldn't. And again, Buffalo and Jacksonville. I mean, this is one of the most unpredictable years I've ever seen in nearly 20 years of doing this.
Well, yesterday when Jacksonville won, I mean, we talked about it Friday that, hey, Buffalo is they're playing Miami 1 week, Jacksonville the next. At what point, human nature takes in that these non-challenging teams that you just don't get up for it, the focus isn't there. And we saw that it could happen. What are we in week 10 now?
Yeah, we're in week 10, yeah.
7 more of these, man. 8 more. 8.
Yeah. 8. Well, yeah, 8. That's right. We got to go back to week 18. So we got that extra week. So, yeah, we're only halfway through. So we get a lot of fun times left.
All right. Casey Joyner, he'll be back on Friday with one thought on every week 10 game. And tonight we'll have Monday Night Football right after the Sixers and Knicks. We'll get you to that one. And, of course, Casey Joyner here on the Monday edition of One Thought Every Game. Casey, good to see you, man.
Appreciate it.
Check him out at The Athletic, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and, of course, right here on 97.3's ESPN's One Thought on every game as we do it every Monday and Friday. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We always appreciate you making the choice to be with us. We're here to the top of the hour. Then Josh has game night, and our game tonight is Sixers-Knicks. No Joel Embiid tonight. He's in the COVID protocol, and apparently he ain't doing so well. He's actually got some actual symptoms. So he is potentially out for a while here. We're saying a while, up to 10 days. And in those 10 days, that would be Knicks tonight, Bucks tomorrow, Toronto on Thursday, Pacers on Saturday, Jazz next Tuesday, Denver next Thursday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He might be able to come back for that game on Thursday against Denver. That would be 10 days. But the Sixers are really battling the COVID safety protocols. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash, and I want to remind you that Casey Joyner's appearance is brought to you by Cape Regional Health System. For a healthier life, call 609-463-CAPE. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. Josh, give me our qualifiers from the last hour, if you would be so kind.
Yeah, we got Zach in Egg Harbor Township.
Zachary!
Carl in Ocean City.
Carl, so nice to see you.
And Kevin in Summers Point.
All right, Kevin in Summers Point, Carl in Ocean City, and Zachary in EHT. You three have a shot to win 99 bottles, a pair of tickets. Everybody who registers, you're walking out with something. A pair of tickets to the Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, college basketball, and anything else that's coming to the South Jersey area We got your tickets. It's 99 bottles. You must be present to win. Those 3 are in. We'll do it again tomorrow. 2 more chances to qualify, 255 and 455. Martin Frank tonight at 6:20. Game night, Sixers, Knicks. Game night here on 97.3 ESPN. 531 Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. What's going on, everybody? Good to have you with us. Eagles lose. We'll continue to break it down. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, set to join us right now on the Sports Bash. CBS Sports, of course, NFL writer, as we bring him in Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays to take a look at everything that happened around the NFL, a little focus on this Eagles loss here. And everybody that's been asked today, Jeff Kerr, seems to go to John Gannon as the guy who's getting the finger pointed at him today. Are you, too, pointing the finger at Jonathan Gannon?
I've been roasting him the last 24 hours, Mike. I might as well keep continuing it because, we talked about this last week. We have more confidence Nick Sirianni would continue doing what he was doing and running the football and finding ways to win than Jonathan Gannon actually blitzing the quarterback. And he did blitz more yesterday, but it wasn't enough. He still played two safeties high. He had Derek Barnett in awkward positions. And Derek Barnett hasn't been good, but when you have your defensive ends lined up in coverage, you're asking for disaster. And look, I like this defensive coordinator a lot. I think he does need personnel help. They don't have it, but that was an embarrassment yesterday. They didn't even touch Justin Herbert.
Right. My point is, I got to put a little of this. As much as I think Sirianni had a nice game plan and he had a winning game plan, they could have won with their game plan. He stuck to what he did well. He didn't, go to the temptation to throw. He ran it 39 times yesterday. They threw it 17. They completed a couple of passes down the field. But at what point does he have to step in and say, hey, I made my adjustments. If you don't start making yours, we're going to have problems here.
Well, that's the thing. It's got to be like the Remember the Titans thing, right? It's Jonathan Gannon pulls the I run the defense, and Nick Sirianni's got to go, well, yeah, as a part of my team's strategy. I've never seen an assistant coach get credit for losing a game. Well, guess what? This assistant coach got credit for losing a game. Nick Sirianni's got to tell him, look, you got to play these guys up, man. I know we're close, but you got to play these guys up. We got to blitz this guy. I don't care if he beats us over the top. We're giving up points already.
Right. I think, is it a personnel thing or is it a coaching thing? Do they not have the horses? I mean, how do you kind of, look at that? I was talking to Jeff Mosher earlier, and he says, look, they just don't have the players to do it. It's essentially he's saying, look, Gannon has some, but people are giving him way too much grief.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. This is what's upsetting. They don't have the players, but the players they do have aren't good this year. Fletcher Cox has been awful, terrible. This is a five-time not even five-time. He's more than a five-time Pro Bowler. This is a guy who's pretty much a lock for all pro almost every single year. And now all of a sudden he can't get sacks. He can't get to the quarterback. Josh Sweat has basically been, outside of the Detroit game, invisible. Derek Barnett's been horrible. Okay. Javon Hargrave's been non-existent the last couple weeks. They all have the linebackers. I'll give them that. The cornerbacks have played well. The safeties are, I think Anthony Harris and Rodney McLeod is starting to show his age and wear and tear a little bit, but he's still a better player than what he's been. Anthony Harris is a better player than what he's shown this year. Yes, they don't have the personnel. I agree with that, but good coaches adjust to their personnel. Look, I'm a basketball coach. I'm a varsity basketball coach. We adjust. We adjust to the personnel we have. I was saying this morning on Bird 6-5, look, we want to be a three-point shooting team, Mike, right? But what happens when you don't have three-point shooters? You can't do it. As much as you want to force it down your throat, you can't do it.
They blitzed yesterday more in the first half. 30% of dropbacks, they blitzed. Why did they get away from that in half number 2?
You know what? That's what I want to know, Mike. You just asked the question I want to ask, honestly. Like, why did you go back to playing that passive coverage? The Chargers were moving down the field, but they weren't giving up points. And Eagles were aggressive when they had to be. And look, Brandon Staley kept the Eagles in this football game by going for it twice on fourth down and not getting it. Let's be honest here. I'll say this. I think Nick Sirianni outcoached him yesterday, if we want to be honest.
I thought Sirianni did a fine job. I don't have a problem with Sirianni for the first time in a while. I mean, not talking about last week, but he had a stretch of games where I thought he didn't give his chance to win. He gave his team a chance to win yesterday.
Yeah.
He ran 39 times. They threw it 17. There's 2 throws that are standing out, obviously, with Hurts, right?
Yeah. And of course, they're the 2 that cost him touchdowns.
That's the problem, Jeff. Those 2 throws cost them points. And those two throws, I don't want to say are elementary, but my God, you got a guy wide open. If Carson Wentz misses that throw, he's getting hammered today. And Devonta Smith, I mean, he's open. And I don't like the play call. 3rd down and 3 in the red zone. You're running down their throat. Just run it at him again. I don't like the play call, but the guy was open.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. One, the guy was open. 2, Hurts' footwork was never right on that play. Like, you knew he was going to miss Devonta Smith just by the way he was going to his left there. I mean, the footwork was terrible. And then I'm like, Devonta Smith's still open. And Devonta Smith took the fall for that, which I disagree with. You know, Jalen Hurts missed him. And the Dallas Goedert one, look, Jalen Hurts was late on the throw. So Dallas Goedert missed. That is 11 points on the board, Mike. 11 points in a game where I thought you played well offensively. If Justin Herbert was the Eagles quarterback yesterday, the Eagles win that game by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm left frustrated because, you know, that's a winnable game at home, and you look at what's going on. Look, do I have ideas that this team's winning the Super Bowl this year? No. Do I think they could make the playoffs? I sure do. I mean, Atlanta right now is the 7th seed, and the narrative after the Atlanta game was, well, they stink. They're the worst team in the league. Well, guess what? They're 4-4, and they're in the playoffs, which means I feel every bit as much that you could be in that spot. And that's a game yesterday you have to have.
And that's the thing, Mike. And we're not saying unrealistic expectations here. We know how bad the NFC is. But the road to the playoffs, if we really want to talk about this, did get harder with them losing this game yesterday. If they win this game, it's like you said, they're 4-5. They're half game out. Oh, and by the way, they beat the team that's in 7th.
Well, so here's the thing, Jeff, with this season. Yes, you're not beating Arizona at full strength or Dallas at full strength or Tampa or Green Bay. But in this year, Aaron Rodgers just missed a game because he's not vaccinated. What's to say that, hey, late December, he fails a test and you're facing Jordan Love in a playoff game? I mean, you've got to be prepared for those.
Anybody, Mike. And
exactly.
Here's the only downside to them making the playoffs this year. That draft pick automatically goes to 19th. That's the only downside.
Okay, but I'm glad you bring this up. And you're right. The whole draft thing, they need what? A linebacker. They need a
defensive end.
Well, they need a defensive end. You're hoping that Miami pick. But realistically, they need a linebacker. They need a safety. You're not drafting a linebacker or a safety in the top 5.
You might be able to get a safety this year. Maybe.
The Hamilton kid, right?
Yeah, Hamilton. Yeah, but who do you draft? You draft Hamilton or do you draft Kayvon Thibodeau if he's there? I draft Kayvon Thibodeau.
Well, I'm saying the Miami pick you're hoping's in the top 5.
It should be. They should get killed on Thursday.
Right. And that's where you get your impact player. But you're not taking a linebacker. Like this whole thought process that these Eagle fans have that they need to lose to get draft picks. If they have 3 top 10 picks, I mean, realistically, the positions that they need are not positions that you draft in the top 10.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's, last year was kind of an odd year. Like Micah Parsons probably in most years does not fall to 12. He doesn't. There were 3 really good receivers, and they all turned out to be they're living up to their hype. All 3 of them. The quarterback, it was such a quarterback-rich draft last year. This year, Kenny Pickett's it, Mike. That's it. I am not sold on Matt Corral. I am not sold on Malik Willis. Everybody I talk to
you know
in the NFL world says it is Kenny Pickett.
You know what's going to happen, though. By the time draft season comes around, this guy's great. He's moving up. He's going up board.
Yeah, they're all great. I'll be sick of it by then.
But take a look at the teams right now. I mean, Houston is going to need a quarterback. I mean, the Watson thing's a disaster for them. So they're going to be in play for the number 1 pick. So you're looking at a quarterback most likely for them. If you're Miami, Detroit, who's 0-8, do you stay with Goff or do you go for a quarterback? I mean, you got 2 teams that are in that top 3 that are most likely going to have to take a quarterback, you would think.
You would think, yeah, Detroit, Houston quarterback. Then you got Philadelphia. So I don't think the Eagles necessarily need to draft a quarterback.
You're talking about because of the Miami pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Jacksonville's not taking a quarterback.
No.
The Jets likely aren't. So, yeah, you're probably if Miami's if they have the 3rd pick, you're hoping that those 2 teams in front of you take quarterbacks and then you get Thibodeau.
Yeah. I just hope Howie Roseman doesn't try to finagle Miami again and get more picks out of them because Miami will be desperate and they have their own top 10 pick. And, Howie Roseman says, well, I can get X player down here again. You know how that works, Mike.
Yeah.
I think if you had the top 5 draft pick from Miami, you just have to use it.
look, at this stage, you got 3 potential picks in the first round. I don't care if they're 3, 10, and 19. Dallas turned their defense around essentially with 2 players, one of which they got in the second round. So you don't have to get 3 top 10 picks to turn this thing around. You just have to make sure that 2 of the 3 can play.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll even go further with this, Mike. If you get 3 impact players on this football team, it is immediately better. I don't care who the coach is. It's immediately better. Like you said, Kayvon Thibodeau.
Well, the question then I have for you, Jeff, is it goes back to, is it coaching or personnel? If he gets 3 players who are impact players, are we talking about Gannon not having a clue?
Well, that's the thing.
If he has Micah Parsons on this team right now, are we having a different conversation?
Well, that's the other thing, Mike. How much of a say did Jonathan Gannon have? Maybe Jonathan Gannon said, hold on a second. We don't have a linebacker. At least I don't think we don't. Maybe we should get this Micah Parsons kid. And, you screwed up. But, again, they needed to – look, I think Eagles did the right thing here. They needed to get somebody for Jalen Hurts. Can you imagine this team right now if they did not have Devonta Smith on offense? We would absolutely know nothing about this quarterback.
Here's what I will say about the draft thing. If you're an Eagles fan, you should want to make the playoffs for this reason. You would hope anyway. It's because Jalen Hurts played well enough to answer your quarterback question so that you don't have to go into the draft thinking you need a quarterback.
So here's the thing. Do you think he played well enough yesterday? That's what I want to know.
No.
I don't think he did either.
I think he made
played great in the second half. But
he made a couple of plays that, yes, not a lot of quarterbacks could make because he has a great ability to move. But you can't consistently think that that's going to happen. You can't miss those 2 throws. So if you're in the front office evaluating him, you're saying those 2 missed throws count more than the plays that he made.
Our buddy John McMullen loves what I said to him last week about Jalen Hurts. I said, you're hoping he might be half decent. He goes, there's your answer. Might be half decent. If you're thinking he might be half decent, and when you're watching the guy on the other side, an absolute stud in Justin Herbert.
Yep.
Again, the Eagles win that football game. Justin Herbert at quarterback. They just do. And if I had to be honest with myself and ranking Jalen Hurts this year, it's 21 or 22. That's not good enough.
Not good enough. I agree. You're hoping, though, that with the way they're running the ball, that evolves the offense enough to give him more open looks, more ability to use his guys. It's odd to say this. We wanted them to run. They got to run less. They got to keep running. They got to feature. They got to feature the run, but then work off of it more, and then find out if Hurts can make play action throws. That's who they have to be.
And you know what? And the Nick Sirianni's credit and Jalen Hurts is doing that on a lot of throws. He did that in the fourth quarter yesterday. He was very good. Honestly, if the Eagles can get Jalen Hurts in that fourth quarter consistently the rest of the year, you might have something. Have something.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, at Jeff Kerr, CBS. And, of course, he's back on Wednesday. We'll look back at Week 9, start to look ahead to Week number 10. We got it all for you right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Mr. Kerr, I'll see you, man.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? I got to gloat a little bit here. I don't know how
That's
I got
right.
that
Oh,
right.
I forgot.
I don't know how I got that right, and I don't know how I predicted exactly what was going to happen. I said to my boss after the game, I wasted 3 hours of my life yesterday. I already knew the result.
27-24 was Jeff Kerr's pick.
And the Chargers are going to kick basically a game-winning field goal. They were going to hold the ball at the end.
I did say Devonta Smith will have a big, long touchdown.
And he did. He should have, too.
There we go. All right, man. I'll talk to you Wednesday.
It sounds great. See you Wednesday.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We will wrap up today's show. His appearance today is brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing, Solar Guardians. Start your solar journey today by learning more. Visit espnsolar.com. Final thoughts, wrapping up the show. That's all next. Sixers tonight. I'll give you the details on who's in and who's out on that game coming up. All right, that'll about do it for me tonight. 5:51 on your Monday. The Sixers lose, of course, and obviously it's a frustrating type of loss. But I thought Jeff Mosher brought up an interesting point, which is you saw growth here. This is a team in the Chargers that right now is a playoff team. They're 5-3. They lead the AFC West, and you kind of went toe-to-toe with a team that is a playoff team. Growth. Here's the problem. Most people don't care about growth. They care about wins and losses. Now, the impractical nature of being a fan, some people want to see wins and they want to see growth. Other people want to see losses and they only want draft picks. I don't care about either of those things. I want to see the team do what they're supposed to do, win games, get better. If they play well and win, maybe they're better than you think they are. The problem we have is everybody thinks people always say, oh, when the Eagles win, isn't it fun to do the show? And I say, it's actually more fun when they lose. Why? Because everybody thinks they know more than the person who is in charge. We always have the answers on how to fix everything. When things are good and they win, we can't bitch and moan and complain. We can only bitch and moan and complain when they lose. And in most people's minds, they know more than the coach. They know more than the GM. They know more than the defensive coordinator. But if the team starts winning, maybe that's a sign that things are moving in the right direction. I go back to what I said on Friday. The preconceived notions of who you are before the season linger. It's one of the reasons why we think Kansas City might turn things around. Why? Well, they've been good. We just think they're going to turn things around. They have shown us no sign that that's accurate. And I talked about it Friday. Your schedule that season dictates if you're going to be good or not. So you play for this season. Next season, you're going to get a totally different set of games and a totally different schedule. So win the games you have in front of you this year. Show some improvement, show some growth, and guess what? If you start to win games, maybe that means the guys that you have are actually better than you thought they were. Holy mackerel, cherish the thought. Because I, for one, think Mailata and Dickerson and Smith and Goddard, I think those players on offense are pretty good players. They need to find some help on defense. There's not a question about that. But if they win some games this year, maybe some of the guys on the defensive side of the ball will grow like Davion Taylor, TJ Edwards, and others. Long way to go. We shall see. 3-6. Got to do better. John Gannon, got to help them get there. Good job, Nick Sirianni. But you need to step in and tell your defensive coordinator, you made adjustments. Now it's time that you make some adjustments. That's what's next. Sixers tonight. No Joel Embiid. He's out for COVID protocols and, in fact, has COVID. And apparently the symptoms are pretty rough for him right now. So he will be out at least tonight and tomorrow, you would imagine. No Tobias Harris, no Matisse Thybulle. I understand that that's a tall task. If they can get a win tonight against a Knicks team that's pretty good, that would be pretty impressive. They got the Bucks tomorrow. Game night's up next. We'll do 99 bottles 2 more times tomorrow. And I'm Mike Gill. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. Thanks to everybody who watched the show on the live video and all of those of you who listened on the radio. Have a great rest of your Monday, everybody.